This is the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, the premier amateur road racing series bringing together the top Sports Car Club of America racers from around the country. This weekend for rounds 7 and 8, one of the most iconic race courses in North America, it's Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Having taken just 6 months to excavate, grade, and pave back in 1970, it has since challenged drivers for over 50 years. From its decreasing radius downhill S's to that long draftable back straight and onto the towering final corner that, for those of you that come here to Brazelton, is the very first thing you see taunting you as you enter the front gate. Road Atlanta has a little bit of everything over its 2.5 miles plus 2.5 miles plus and 12 turns. Welcome everybody. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Brendan Kazmarek, and we're bringing you all the coverage of the Super Tour here this weekend from Road Atlanta on DriversEye Live. Good afternoon, Brendan. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Greg. I am well. It's for now a very dry and frankly beautiful day at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. No sunshine, but temperatures are a little cooler. Track temperatures are a little cooler, which means fast lap time.
Yeah, exactly. Low-ish humidity, given that we're supposed to probably get a lot of liquid sunshine.
We are going to talk plenty about that.
Yeah, a little bit later today. But for now, with our first group heading out on course this afternoon, this is Spec Miata. Now, this isn't the start of the event. We had all of our 8 different run groups on track this morning for their very first 25-minute qualifying session. Starting now, our 8 groups, they're going to have a second qualifying session to set the grid for tomorrow's sprint races. And so with this group on track currently, again, Spec Miata, I believe it's our largest group of the weekend. We had 47 drivers set qualifying times. Danny Stain, provisional pole sitter, with Chuck McTutis, his teammate, Skylar Cottrell, your top 3. But let's do this first for those of you that haven't seen the layout here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Let's take a quick look, and Ryan, if we can do if we can bring up that fly-in for Michelin Raceway as our drivers now taking the green flag for their very first flying laps. And here we go. Brendan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about MRRA?
Yeah, I took a look at the track earlier, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it too much. Like you said, Greg, it's a fast-flowing circuit, very fast down the back straightaway. I think you described it as long and draftable.
Yes.
Right into the Hawk Performance braking zone, down into turn number 10 in the top right corner of your screen. But that's not what greets you when you pull in the gate here. What you see first is this massive 6-story drop underneath the Fox Factory Bridge down into the final corner. 4th gear, 100+ miles an hour for most cars down at the bottom of the hill here. And then you look to your left up into turn 1, and you're climbing back up the 4 stories on the other side.
Exactly.
Still doing 100+ miles an hour. It's so quick. From turn 1 down to turn 5, 4th gear plus, turn 5 climbing straight up, like staring at the sky. Exactly.
And when you look at it on camera, you don't see the compression, you don't see the rises there. What you do see, though, it's usually a number of cars just scrabbling for grip to try and get through those corners. As we watch now, what on this course, that was turn 7. That is the final corner that takes you onto this very long back straight, and it is absolutely key, especially in these momentum cars, these lower horsepower cars, that you get a good run out of there, because again, you're gonna try to keep up that draft. You don't want folks to be able to go right by it into this braking zone at turns 10A and 10B. As we're going to have our first flying laps start to come in here momentarily. And going to the top of the leaderboard initially out of Arlington, Texas, from the Wheels America Racing Team, Logan Stretch with a 1:43.4, so about 1.2 seconds off of that bogey time that Danny Stain, many-time race winner here in Spec Miata at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, many-time American Road Race Champions winner in Spec Miata here, that he set earlier this morning.
Just getting started, Greg. It's going to be a minute to get tires up to temperature, everything back into the operating mode, but to be 2/10 off of the provisional pole time that was set for qualifying one this morning means I think we're probably going to see that time reset and the pole time reset sometime in the next 20 minutes before we reach a checkered flag. I want to stay on this camera just for a second here, Greg. This is the exit of turn 5, where I don't know that we had a properly working camera last year. A very minor tweak to the track here, and the first noticeable track layout tweak I've seen in many, many years.
That little patch of concrete.
It's
asphalt.
repaved. So old ones will remember that this track used to be split into 2 distinct courses. You had the shortcut that went off at turn 5 to driver's right and then rejoined on the back straightaway, and then you had a secondary road that rejoined the south part of the circuit, right? So you could theoretically run them as independent circuits. What they've done is to narrow the second access road. There used to be a big, wide paved road. They've dug it up, narrowed it, and extended the gravel track towards the turn 5 exit wall.
Okay.
And then created a big asphalt patch at the end of the curb. So actually,
you could turn in a little. You probably turn in a little bit earlier.
What it allows you to do is to track out a little bit wider.
Right.
Get to that asphalt patch on the backside of the curb sooner. And when you talk about, the momentum nature of the Spec Miatas, and a couple of the other classes we'll have this weekend, being able to open the exit of that corner up just a little bit, no matter how much the curb unsettles the car, if it can take it and you can keep your foot in the throttle, it's worth maybe just a couple of hundredths.
I was going to say, you'll be able to turn in a little bit earlier. You let the car drift out a little bit wider, and you can carry a little bit more speed down towards turn 6. And in this track, Brendan, is I'd like to call it an old school racetrack. There have been a lot of changes as far as safety goes over the years. But it's one of those deals where so many walls are so close to the surface.
Yeah, even this turn 6 and 7 complex here, it's not a particularly high speed portion of the track, but you've got to carry a lot of speed into that sequence of corners to be able to get your run onto the back straightaway. Easy to drop a wheel as well, headed out of turn 6 and at turn 7, but you've got to keep your foot in the throttle through the exit of turn 7 there, and just try and carry as much speed as you can onto that back straightaway.
Yeah, so Brendan, as we do all the time, I want to thank our associate producers for joining us here in the chat. For those of you that are wondering, Brian Bielanski will be here starting tomorrow morning and joining us for the coverage. But now going to the top of the leaderboard in Spec Miata, Brendan, and we are still a little bit off of that provisional pole time set this morning. Nick Bruni, one of our co-national champions, he's out of Arlington, Virginia, in the East Street Racing number 6 machine, a 143.30, 42 thousandths of a second up on Chuck McTudis, and then about another 19 hundredths back to Logan Stretch. Travis Wiley, then Danny Stain, currently your 6th fastest driver, but again, we're still about 1.1 seconds off of the provisional pole time set earlier today. And these are, for those of you watching at home, these are 25-minute qualifying sessions. The sessions we had also were 25 minutes. I guess that's a nice little segue into our sprint races tomorrow, which are going to be 25-minute timed races. Here, as we're starting to see a number of drivers start to work together here and use that draft in qualifying. It's going to be the fast way around the course. Taking a look at the number 39 machine, currently, who is locked in. Gosh, who were they with? And I'm sure we'll get that in just a moment here. And I think actually it might have been Brett. So Danny Stain's the 39 machine, and I think he's locked in with Brett Kowalski currently, and they are 5th and 6th fastest in the session.
Stretch and Kowalski down the front straightaway.
Okay.
They're leading this pack of cars, or several segments of cars headed down into turn number 1, and then I didn't catch the number of that third car, but it kind of stretches out behind those lead 2. Stretch right now in 3rd, just over a 1/10 of a second off of the provisional pole time from Nick Bruni. Kowalski sitting in 5th, just about a 1/10 further back of him.
And you know, it's funny. So we've had a number of drivers send us some bio information, and Kowalski, who I believe races for East Street Racing, much like Bruni and Jim Drago, Preston Pardis, when he's out running. He said that he is the 3-time K1 K1 karting champion. Of course, that's an indoor karting chain, so we never know where. But more importantly, that he's outqualified Nick Bruni multiple times. So you know, if he's leading that train right now, and Nick Bruni is your fastest driver on course, watch out, number 6. All right, here, and I just love this view, Brendan, as we're watching drivers come out of turn 6 into turn 7, and you can see the tendency there. Turn 7 is very much a blind corner. The track raises up just a little bit on turn in, and you cannot very easily see the exit until you get to the apex. And you can see, looking at this video, how many drivers, they get it wrong. They end up at least 2, usually 4 wheels off in that red Georgia clay, and just can't get a good run onto the back straight, much like the drivers that just came out of turn 7 3 wide.
It's a very interesting sequence down there. It looks easy on paper. You've got a sweeping right-hander at turn 6 and then a harder right-hander at turn 7. But that's exactly the point I was going to make. 6 has all that camber, and you're climbing the hill. So the left front and the left rear corner of the car can accept a little bit more load.
They dig in, exactly.
Whereas when you get to turn 7, you're braking and turning into a blind apex.
And it starts to flatten out,
and it's dead flat,
exactly,
like a pancake.
So all that grip you had on the left front tire and the right rear kind of goes away just after you're flicking the car in.
And because it's so flat, you're pointing at an exit curve you can't see. So you've got to get to the throttle super, super early. As you're at the apex, you can't really pick out the edge of the exit curve that you're aimed at, and you're committing back to full throttle, which is exactly why you see cars drop 2 wheels off to driver's left. You see that red Georgia clay get kicked up in the air. Maybe not so much this weekend, it'll be a little bit damp, but you'll see the ruts on the backside of the curb from this next camera in sequence. And it's been that way for as long as I've been coming to Road Atlanta. They keep extending the curb, and they keep digging more ruts.
And they keep going further out and further out, exactly. There's a reason why there's all that extra tire wall up against that wall, driver's left. All right, Chuck McTudis now from OPM Autosports goes to the top of the leaderboard here in the session, a 142.841. That is still about 1,500ths off of where he was this morning. He was second fastest driver in qualifying this morning, and therefore still a couple tenths off of provisional pole. But let's do this, Brendan. We're coming up just about halfway through the session. Let me make a quick call to the grid for our next group, and then we'll take a little break. And thanks to our partners and sponsors that bring you all the action this weekend. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. First call to the grid for race group number 2. That is E Production, F Production, H Production, GT Light, and B-Spec. Race group number 2. Small bore, please start heading to the grid.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for SCCA and provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. Hagerty also provides guaranteed value coverage and even has protection for your trailer. And did you know that SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty? Hagerty, let's drive together. Learn more at Hagerty.com.
Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit bravotrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for the hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid. Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
It's the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, the premier amateur road racing series bringing together top SCCA road racers from around the country. The Hoosier Super Tour visits some of the greatest tracks in North America, showcasing each of our 28 car classes. From production to GT cars, prototype to formula cars, the Hoosier SCCA Super Tour packs a ton of wheel-to-wheel racing action into every event.
And welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta for the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. It's day number 1 here, and I am Gregg Ginsberg with Brennan Kazmarek. We're bringing you qualifying, our last qualifying sessions of the weekend, and then it's more or less racing all weekend long. I think we've got a few qualifying sessions, a couple straggler sessions early tomorrow morning, but for the most part, nothing but racing all weekend long.
You know what, Greg? This is one of the few racetracks in the country where it almost doesn't matter what session you're running. It is just so cool to see cars at speed here. I once heard this they talked about Darlington this way, right? Back in the high horsepower days of the NASCAR Cup cars, where you could watch a car rip around Darlington at, 850 horsepower, sail off into turn 1 doing 185, breathe out of the throttle. It didn't matter. You would go and watch single car qualifying because it was such a unique place to see those types of cars at speed. And for me, this is the same way. You could stand almost anywhere around the 2.5 miles at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, and it is just so cool to see race cars being race cars.
So yesterday, we were tracking, me and another, and a competitor, we're looking at some onboard video from Dave Panteric's GT1 Ford Mustang. This is a Trans Am car. He wasn't behind the wheel during the session. Another driver was. But coming out of turn 12, going down into turn 1, this driver was doing somewhere around 147, 148 before heading up the hill. He was breathing out of the throttle very early, going into 10A and 10B at the end of the back straight. No, not his car. Probably the first time in the car. He was doing 180.
A cool 180.
And coming out of turn 5 and making that run to that cambered turn 6, 147. Or 140, somewhere like in the 140 range. I was like, oh my God.
It's such a unique track in the way it both tests your car's capabilities, limits of grip, mechanical and aero grip at various different parts of the track, test braking abilities, the Hawk Performance braking zone down into turn number 10 that we're looking at now, and the top speed. Right? I mean, you really stretch the legs of the car down the back straightaway. It's just a perfect blend of everything that almost any type of race car would need to exceed in order to be quick. We'll see a little bit later on the prototype group and the big open wheel group, the Wings and Things class.
That have all that aerodynamic downforce for some of these corners that these Miatas, they don't have.
It used to be back in the prototype, the LMP2 days of the American Le Mans Series. Of course, Petit Le Mans hosted here now for 25 plus years. When you send it down into turn number 1, they were breathing the throttle.
Right.
Down a gear, breathe the throttle. You were apexing turn 1 somewhere around 135 to 140 miles an hour. Just an insane amount of speed.
No, absolutely nuts. And and I've said from the very first time, it looks as though Brennan, we are going full course caution, and so I'm going to be taking a look at our flagtronic system to see if I can pick up what car it may be.
I think we found it, Greg.
Yep, there he is.
It's on the right-hand, driver's left, right side of your screen, just adjacent to the Motul banner.
Yep, and that is coming out of turn number 5, making the run down to that heavily cambered turn 6. And Yeah.
Looks like a Miata to me. Greg.
Yeah, it's a Miata. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as though the driver has our electronic system in the car. We'll know in just a moment here which driver that is. Well, we'll probably be able to see who shows as having run fewer laps. As we are starting to see, though, a number of cars come down the pit lane at this point, as we only have about 5 minutes remaining in the session. I'm sure those drivers trying to determine whether or not they're going to be able to put in any more flyers before the checkered flag comes out.
Yeah, top three, Greg, have already decided to call it an afternoon. Charles Matudis, Danny Stain, Travis Wiley in the 177 up onto the second row of the, provisionally the second row of the grid. Of course, the results will be concatenated here at the end of the session, and we'll set our grid for tomorrow morning. But I think at this point, with under 5 minutes remaining now in the session, and many of the proverbial dance partners having pulled in, you're going to be hard-pressed to improve on the time that you will have already set in most cases.
Yeah, indeed. So as we look at this, again, I think based on his time from this morning, it looks as though Danny Stain will go into tomorrow's 25-minute sprint race as your pole sitter. His teammate, Chuck McTudis, who is our fastest in this session, should be starting on the outside of row number 1. And as we go and filter back just a little bit, Travis Wiley, who turned in a 142.925, 22 thousandths of a second faster than Skylar Cottrell. Those two drivers, Cottrell set that time this morning, so that should make up row number 2. And then we take a look. Nick Bruni ran a 143.1 in this session. Logan's, and wow, let's take a look here. So Bruni turned in a 143.156, and I think that is going to keep him in 6th position, because we've got Logan Stretch and Brett Kowalski. Stretch with a 143.035 this morning. Brett Kowalski at a 143.136. So actually, they will start 5th and 6th, and then Nick Bruni should now, I think, get shuffled back to 7th position, starting on the inside of row number 4. And then I think next up in line, Skip Brock Jr. out of Birmingham, Alabama, also driving for OPM Autosports. It looks like he will start on the outside of row number 4.
When you look down the timing list, Greg, whether you're using racehero.io or scca.com/live, which will be your source for live timing this weekend, the gap to the next car in almost every case is 0.0 something.
Yes.
Right. Put those all on track at the same time, 2x2 when we start the race tomorrow at around 9:50 Eastern time, and you're going to get all these cars in a big blob of about 47 sailing off down into turn 1, and they're not going to spread out much further than that. And
sailing off might not be the
yeah, maybe you're right.
Use. But to put things in perspective, Brendan, in this qualifying session, the top 17 drivers were within 1 second of the pole sitter.
It's what we love about Spec Miata racing. It's what we love about the top level of the SCCA, the Hoosier Super Tour. And it's what we love about Road Atlanta. So join us definitely tomorrow, 9:50. We might be starting to dry out by then. It's a concern. We may get a little damp Spec Miata action first thing in the morning, but obviously 2 races to come for all of our race groups this weekend, and it'll all kick off tomorrow at just before 10 o'clock Eastern time. We are back to green, Greg.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that we have gone back to green flag conditions around the course. A little bit over 1:20 remaining in the session, and so drivers that are coming down out of turn 12, we see a group working together coming out of 10A and 10B now. They should be coming down turn 12 and onto the front straight. They will get one last flying lap in here before the end of the session. So maybe I was a little bit premature in calling out the top couple rows, but I think most of those drivers have already brought their cars back behind the wall and behind the paddock, into the paddock.
What you see on Race Hero is accurate. That lead yellow car that retook the green flag, if you like, is Skip Brock Jr.
Yeah.
Interesting to see him still out there. You would think at this point, not really having a drafting partner, you'd be hard-pressed to improve on the time that you've already set, but maybe he felt he was being held up, and if he can get some clear air on the nose of that MX-5, he can
He's only got to find
better run down the long stretches.
He's only got to find a couple hundredths to move up, to maybe move up and even another row. Everything is that tight here as we see him coming out of turn 7, and we'll see those cars, the 3 that are working together right now behind Skip Brock as they're coming out of turn number 7 now.
Forgive me for not knowing, but these are teammates. The 3 that are in this line here, they've decided to stay out and will come around to take the checkered flag this time by as time expires. But they've all got the same logo on the side of their car and are going to work together to try and put in a couple of quick more times. My guess is this is the 07 of Tyler Brown, the 09 of Andrew DeVoto, and maybe the 62 or the 55 are all in that pack headed down into and now out of the turn 10 and 10A chicane.
Yes.
Brock Jr. pits. The other 3 are going to plunge down the hill underneath the Fox Factory Bridge and come around to take the checkered flag. Let's look for improvements.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, they are.
2 of them.
Yeah, wow, look at that.
DeVoto and Smith both improved their times.
Yeah, indeed, as DeVoto now turns in a 143.7, Center Smith a 144.025. They're all driving for Sneaky Moose Motorsports.
That explains the moose on the side of the car.
That is indeed correct. So I don't know what I'm going to do. That we've got the Sneaky Moose, we've got the Angry Sheep here this weekend with Chris Childs, and there is also Angry Llama Motorsports here this weekend as well.
I will be actively recruiting this weekend for Adjective Animal Motorsports. Looking for partners.
That's right. that adjective is for sale to the highest bidder, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do it.
All right. So again, we believe that Danny Stain here as the checkered flag is now out on the session, and a few cars left circulating. Most of the 40, we had 46 go out for qualifying here this afternoon. Sean Varwig, our sole driver that was out this morning for the first qualifying session, did not turn a lap here this afternoon. He may be our driver that was off on the back straight.
One more little nugget here before we wrap up from Group 1 qualifying 2. Ian Hurl makes a note about Luke Pullen in the YouTube chat, and please do join us there. Can't be too upset with 10th in the first outing on a new car on a new track.
No, certainly not.
Congratulations to Luke. That's an excellent run. First time here. Road Atlanta is an awfully intimidating venue, and you're surrounded by 46 almost identically prepared cars in the Spec Miata field. So congratulations.
And I think I was going to say earlier that this track, probably more so than any other that I've raced at, when you first come in or when you first start to turn laps, it is by far the most intimidating racetrack that you have. So, all right, so let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Actually, before we do, going to make a final call to the grid for our next break, for our next group, and we'll be back with more qualifying action here from Road Atlanta. Attention in the paddock, race group number 2. E Production, F Production, H Production, GT Light, and B-Spec, please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. Race Group 2, B-Spec, E Production, F Production, H Production, and GT Light, please head to the grid.
Mazda's been very supportive of racers within the SCCA and all the other grassroots organizations for many, many years. Really, their support for racing and our type of racing is unmatched from any other manufacturer. They've been a great partner for many, many years.
Mazda, hands down, is the best company to work with for sports car racing. Factory support is second to none. It just feels right. You feel connected.
Back live at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. This is the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA
Bielanski's Inside the SCCA podcast here this week, giving his rundown of Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. In E-production, Peter Norton was our fastest driver, with Doug Piner's second fastest. I believe 2.2 seconds separating those two drivers. In F-production, it was Mason Workman and Ken Kennard. They've been battling out for years, about a half second separating them. In GT Light, we had Peter Shadowin in his Honda CRX. You were fastest driver, 1.7 seconds clear of Chris Bovis, with Michael Lewis third fastest. And then in H production, your 2019 national champion Vesa Silgren in his Honda CRX, about 3/4 of a second up on Matt Brannon. So we have with us, and we talked a little bit earlier, actually during the last session, about some relative speeds about his car. He heard us talking and decided to come and jump up. We've got our 2017 national champion in GT1, multi-time Trans Am winner. We've got David Panterick, who is doing double duty this weekend, not only in his GT1 race car, but you're going to be racing a little bit, actually going to be going out for qualifying in just a little bit in a car that's maybe a little bit new to you.
Yeah, it's new. It's a different experience. Everybody says that the Miatas, whether it's Spec Miata or the SMX, is a momentum car, but every car is a momentum car, just where the momentum is kept.
Is in a different place. Yeah.
You know, it's a humbling experience. I'm currently 23rd out of 33 drivers, and you know, I'm not used to being that far back, but I get a kick out of this because I'm going to be 62 in August, meaning I'm eligible for Social Security, and probably a third of the field isn't eligible to vote.
I mean, I was going to say, you take a third of the field, add all their ages together, and they've still got 10 years before they can retire, before they're eligible for Social Security. Now, I know a couple of years ago you also spent some time in a Spec Racer Ford as well.
Yeah. We had. You know, when I do the club racing, doing one class, sometimes I get bored. I suffer from ADHD. It's never been officially diagnosed, but people say that, you know, I just can't sit still. So in 2020, me and Matt Miller, who runs my race program and one of my best friends, I said, you know, Matt, let's get an SRF3. And I made the comment to him. I said, get two. I said, I'll prep them. You pay for the entry fee. And we'll go out and have some fun together.
Yeah.
We'll run the GT1 car. So we did that twice. We went in 2020, we all went the COVID shutdowns. We were at St. Louis for the first Super Tour there.
Right.
We had a good time and all that stuff. And then a friend of mine, Justin Hilley, who was one of the runoffs in Spec Miata at Ohio in 16.
So, yeah, I was in 2016.
He asked me, what's it like to drive? And I said, I'll do the same thing for you. So that did for Matt. He ended up just paying for the entry fee and driving the car.
Now I know, because I was at the Mid-Ohio Super Tour that year.
Yeah.
Back in, it was like 2019.
2020, and in the second session, the second race of the day, he was on the podium. It's like, oh, he's really good.
Yeah.
So we got him qualified for the runoffs. He ran the fastest lap in SRF3 at the runoffs. I finished 9th, and it's like, wow, talk about a talented driver.
So moral of the story: don't run out your SMX car to any.
Well, you know, I spoke to the guys at Mazda because we've got two of them now.
Okay.
I ended up buying a second one after I had such a good time at Sebring. I had a smile on my face, and Matt said, I've never seen you smile so much. I said, get a second one. So we've got Chase McIntyre, who's been a long-time client of Kreider's.
Okay.
So we're putting him in this car, but he's going to do 4 or 5 races. And I told the guys at Mazda, I says, you want to drive, so, you know, get somebody that's on the border? I'll put him in. and let them drive the car. Mazda's been so good to us in the sport that sometimes we have to pay them back.
Give it back, yeah.
Yeah, so I made that offer to him. So we're going to be at VIR. I don't know if Chase is going to come or not, but if he doesn't, we'll bring the car, and if somebody wants to do it, we'll work something out.
Work something out with them. That's amazing. And I was to say that SMX race at Sebring was really something special. That just long line of drivers for. I think we had like 9 or 10 cars all grouped together for the majority of the race. It was a neat thing to watch for. And I'd seen a lot of the what was known last year's Spec MX5 Challenge at a lot of regional races, but it looks like a lot of these younger drivers that have come up have really kind of upped the game.
They're very, very talented. You have to admire what they developed into.
I was just pondering the Spec MX5, the fields that we've seen so far this year. It has delivered every single time we've put them on track. The racing at NOLA was incredible as the sun was setting. I mean, it really has delivered in a way that I don't know that even the club or Mazda Motorsports would have expected the Spec MX5 Challenge to deliver.
They've really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
I'm smiling the whole time I'm driving the car. It's a blast.
All right, real quick, guys, let's check in with qualifying session here. We're about 7 minutes into this 25-minute session. Let's check in. We'll start with B-Spec, where Josh Schmidt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, currently your fastest driver on track with a time of 1:53.123, about a second and a half off of the provisional pole time set by Stuart Black in his Chevy Sonic a little bit earlier today. Chris Taylor, your second fastest driver in his Mazda 2 at a 53.478. And then Stephanie Anderson, and Stephanie's driving with the backup motor. Chris Taylor's backup motor was put in the car yesterday. Apparently she had some issues early on in testing yesterday morning. She's currently your second fastest driver. I know she finished quite well at the June sprints, and actually I think won the American Road Race of Champions here this past fall in B-Spec. In E-Production, it's Peter Norton and his Lotus, we'll call it a Caterham, here with a time of 1:38.486. And that is a half second faster than he ran this morning. Doug Piner, currently 2 seconds off that in his BMW Z3, and then John Balcom in his Alpha Spider. I think it's the first time we've seen Balcom here on the Super Tour since Sebring. In GT Light, it is once again the two CRXs. Peter Shadowin in the number 72 with a 140.220. Chris Bovis, a 141.425. Michael Lewis currently in his Mazda RX-7, which always does double duty over the course of the weekend, usually runs in GT Light and I think also GT3. Currently third fastest. And in each production, it's Matt Brannon in his Fiat X19. I think out from your neck of the woods from Columbus, Ohio, is Matt, and Vesa Sogren, former national champion in his Honda CRX, currently 3.3 seconds off. So a little surprising there to see that little X19 running so quickly. And if let's take a look at times from this morning. Sildren's provisional pole time set this morning was a 1:46 flat. Brannon is at a 1:46.4, so he's getting there. And in F production, Ken Kennard, your fastest driver in this session, with Workman's second fastest. They were swapped this morning. Kennard has a 1:38.346. And that is about 0.3 under the time that Workman had set earlier this morning. So for the moment, Ken Kennard, your provisional pole in F production.
One of the neat things I love watching with this group in particular is sometimes you do get big gaps that spread themselves out in the intra-class battles, right?
Sure.
The E-productions maybe have a little more time between their cars in that class than normal, but they all fit very neatly together like puzzle pieces. So you end up with these really interesting races between an E-production and an F-production, or between a B-Spec and maybe somebody towards the bottom of GT Light, that it creates the same type of on-track dynamic that you get in true multi-class racing.
Sure.
It's very interesting to follow on track, and it does still create really, really interesting and fun to watch battles, even though they may not be for a class position.
Yeah, for example, right now we're watching the 162, they're going into turn one right now. It's the 162 of John Bell, and he is out there with, I believe, it was the Oh, I think it was the 12 no, it wasn't the Connolly machine. I believe it was the 98 of Miller that they were working the draft together down the front straight. And again, two cars, not the same class, but still.
Met him, but I knew who he was.
Like you, national champion.
Yeah,
he's got some gold medals.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. And I said, I could make that happen. So he private messaged me. She says, "Are you serious?" I go, "Sure." And, you know, I don't make that offer to everybody, but not everybody's Franklin Futrell. Right. You know, so he goes, "This is so cool." And all his friends were so excited and all that stuff. And quite honestly, he was up to speed in 4 laps. We put him out, and he was going 24s, I think, his 4th lap, and then we came in and made a few changes. Next session, you know, he 24, 20, and then he ran a 20.4. Now, that is perspective. I qualified 4th in Trans Am here last year at a 19.7.
Oh my God!
So he was
he's pretty close. Yeah, he's
and it doesn't surprise me. You know, driving isn't acquired skill, and he certainly has acquired it.
Yeah.
He's a very credible person, so I didn't have any qualms about putting him in the car, even though we've never met. I knew who he was, and again, he had a good reputation, not only being a good driver, but not being an idiot. And there's a lot of top drivers that are idiots, but he's a very sensible person.
Right.
So, you know, kudos to his mom and dad if they're listening, and all that stuff. But,
well, there's I think a lot more at stake when you're doing 180 miles an hour, possibly, than when you're doing 105.
Yeah, I mean, you know, borrowing my SRF3 or even my Spec MX5 and versus my Riley chassis GT1 car is a different story.
Yeah, exactly.
But I enjoy doing that.
Just a quick observation from up here at start-finish. Greg, I promise I'm not staring at your forehead this direction, but Michael Lewis has decided to call it a day in his number 132 Mazda RX-7 in GT Light. Second place in GT Light at the moment based on this afternoon's times, but I had an observation headed down into turn number 1. From this distance, remember, we're at the exit of turn 12. From here, you could see gray, sort of charcoal-colored brake smoke out of the right front corner of his car headed into turn number 1. Now, David, it's a quick corner, right? You arrive there quickly, but you still carry a lot of speed through the apex there. Well, it isn't really the type of corner I would expect to see smoke or brake heat out of the right front corner of the car.
We brake pretty hard.
Do you?
Yeah, we're hitting, don't hold me to this, but it's 155-ish.
Okay.
We get down to the turning point and all that stuff. And, you know, some people apply a little more brake, the trail brake and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're moving along pretty good. You know, we're coming down here, slow speeds, I think, about 127.
So quick, man. That's so quick. And there's not a whole lot of grass between you and this white and blue tire.
And I've never done it flat out. The good drivers do it flat out in our cars. I just haven't been able to.
I don't know. It only took me 3 laps to get my CRX to go flat.
Yeah, amazing. That's world champion Gregg Ginsberg.
All 130 horsepower.
It seems like the kind of track that really rewards driving at the limit, right? If you can be comfortable there, it seems like the kind of track that will pay you back in lap time.
You need to be brave at this track.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know, just coming over the hill, even though you're not going really fast, but the way we sit low in our cars, you just see nothing but sky, and it's like, is there a track on the other side? And you just got to nail it and go over there, and car gets light, and you know, it's fun. And this is off camera, this turn 12, so this is a great track. I look forward to coming here. We're backing off on Trans Am a little bit this year, but I think we're coming back in 2 weeks just because it's Road Atlanta. It's one of my favorite tracks. And, you know, I'm close to Watkins Glen, Middlehausen, my backyard. I go to Road America. Sebring's neat, but, you know, this is a special place.
All Super Tour venues. It's almost like you go to the places people love to race.
Yeah.
And like to watch cars go around quickly. It's a great nod to the Super Tour.
You're a great ambassador for the series, man. All right. All right. So, David, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you for doing this. This is, you know, we're having fun with cars. Thanks for Hoosier for doing this as well. You know, we were talking about all the things that Mazda do, but Hoosier, we're grateful for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan goes and throws the Hoosier logo up on the screen. How timely! That's absolutely. All right, so want to thank Dave Paterick running in both Spec MX-5 and also GT1 this weekend. We're going to make a first call to the grid for our next group, and then take a little break. And thanks to our partners, kind of like Hoosier. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. First call to the grid for race group number 3, Formula Atlantic, Formula Continental, Formula Enterprises 2, Formula X, Prototype 1, and Prototype 2. Race group 3, please start heading to the grid.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for the hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid. Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit BravoTrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
Get more bang for your buck at SummitRacing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands. Parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your racing weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
If you like what you see today, become part of the action by joining the Sports Car Club of America. Whether you want to drive, flag, organize, officiate, have fun with cars, or meet 65,000 enthusiast friends, SCCA has plenty to feed your motorsport obsession. Ask someone trackside how to get involved or visit scca.com for more information.
Welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. It's qualifying day, and I'm here. I'm Gregg Ginsberg, along with Brendan Kazmarek, and we've got our second qualifying session out on track right now. It's our small bore production car classes, as well as GT Light and B-Spec.
We love to shout out Brian's associate producers in the chat, and notice the name Gina Katzman.
That's Josh's Josh's wife. Josh being being, and of course I've lost it here. Josh Schmidt's wife actually went to school, I think college, with Brian Bielanski.
Is that right?
Yes.
So, you know what? This makes sense. I was concerned that we might be cousins.
Okay.
Katzmarek?
Yeah.
My grandfather.
Sorry if I've just blown the setup.
No,
for you.
it wasn't set up to a joke. So there's no punchline here.
No.
But now I'm intrigued. I love seeing the close names. My grandfather was a pass mark when he first was first here in the United States. So nice to see the Polish still represented, even though Mr. Bielanski couldn't be here for today.
And so if you want to get more of a rundown, wait till after this broadcast.
Oh, okay.
But Brian had, as I mentioned, Josh on the Inside the SCCA podcast this week, going over Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And apparently Brian's initial guest, sorry Josh wasn't the first choice, but something came up that the original guest, the last minute, had to cancel.
Yep.
Brian reached out to Gina.
There you
Gina
go.
got Josh to come on the podcast. And we should also say that Gina is in the chat. She was talking up Stephanie Anderson, who we mentioned a little bit earlier today, I think, for International Women's Day.
It is International Women's Day.
Yeah.
And the shout-outs for International Women's Day have continued to flood in, whether they be engineers. We've got plenty of quarter marshals that are out with us this weekend. Drivers aplenty in the SCCA. If the appropriate term is Happy International Women's Day, then certainly we would celebrate alongside you and celebrate the contributions that you've all made.
All right, hey, real quick, let's take a look. Coming up into turn 3 right now, so this should be the next camera in line for Josh. We're going to see that little blue Mazda X19 starting to come down the hill. It's the second car coming down through the S's. That is the car driven by Matt Brannon. And let's see, Brannon, I believe, is still your fastest H production driver on track. He's got about a 35/100th of a second advantage over Vesa Solgren and in his Honda. And so Matt, he's had a little bit of experience with Fiats here, as he has been running vintage Fiat part suppliers.
As you do.
As you do, since 1971. Now, I don't know how vintage they were back 45 years ago when he started this company, but he's definitely known Fiats and X19s for a number of years. I think this is a car that he's been running for many years. Both he, his wife, Marnie, who is I believe Marnie is a safety car, pace car driver for the Ohio Valley region of the SCCA, but she's also got a comp license, and son Braden also a competition license. And my understanding is that Braden is here racing today or this weekend as well. We'll try and pick out exactly what car they are in, but we see this all the time, whether they be brothers and sisters, whether they be fathers and sons and daughters, but many multi-generational families racing in the SCCA. Taking a look now, Brendan, it looks like 2 of our B-Spec racers have decided to bring their cars down the pit lane. One is Stuart Black, who for the second session in a row, your fastest driver on course. He managed a 1:51.06 in this session, and about 0.5 of a second, about half a second faster than yesterday. Chris Taylor in the number 46 Mazda 2. And talk about living in a prime location, or not living, but his shop is directly across the street from the Circuit of the Americas.
Heard.
And I think they've got a big project there that they're building up with a number, I think with Tim Myers. Who's
Myers.
SCCA WRL racer.
Yeah.
Building up garages
of the Americas.
Exactly,
yes.
directly across the street from COTA. So they are partners in that. Chris, second fastest in the session with a 1:51.136, 69 1,000ths. That's nice. 69 1,000ths off of Stuart Black's times from this session. And with that, I believe that would move Chris, who did not set a time this morning. I think he had some transponder issues actually this morning. It'll move Chris up to second fastest in B-Spec.
Yeah, that's a veritable sandwich there. Chris Taylor's in the middle of it, B-Spec. A couple of thousandths off of the back of Stuart Black on the provisional pole, and a couple of thousandths ahead of Josh Schmidt there in third. So if we can get Stephanie Anderson up to speed with that backup engine she's got in that car, then maybe those 4+ Joseph Gersh didn't put on a show for us for tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I didn't see Gersh go out for this session.
No.
Gersh driving the red and white Toyota Yaris. Best B-Spec photo I've ever seen was him going through turn 2 at VIR at the runoffs back in 2019, where the car, I think, was rubbing the driver's side door handles. And oddly, never tipped over, which in a B-Spec car is somewhat odd. But it's great to see that. Yeah, Stephanie a little bit off, and I believe we saw for a while there where Stewart Black, Chris Taylor, Josh Schmidt were working together in a little bit of a draft train. Yeah. Stephanie was not part of that, or she had fallen away from that fairly early. All right, in E-production right now, it is still Peter Norton over Doug Piner as the checkered flag is now being displayed with John Bauckham in his Alpha Spider. And I think Bauckham, well, I know fairly certain John Bauckham used to run a Fiat 124, Fiat Spider convertible years ago, but in an Alpha Spider. He's out of Monroe, North Carolina, and currently about 4 seconds separating the top 3 drivers in GT Light. Oh, here we go. Here's a bit of a change. Chris Bovis, your fastest driver in the session, a 1:38.327, and that is 0.8 faster than Peter Shadowin ran this morning. So move Bovis up to pole for tomorrow's race in GT Light. Michael Lewis did a 1:39.220, and that is just off of Shadowin's times from this morning, about a 1/10 off of Shadowin's time from this morning. Shadowin was 3rd fastest. Here is, and we didn't mention this, but he was in the field this morning, and 4th fastest right now, Graham Fuller, who is your reigning GT Light national champion, driving the Toyota Tercel that he picked up, I think, 2 weeks before the runoffs last year and won the national championship in. Fuller, 3rd fastest, and then David Blaine, I guess, when he's not making airplanes disappear. If he could make all of his competitors in GT Light disappear, it would be good. But David Blaine, he's out of Trent Woods, North Carolina, 5th fastest. In H production, we mentioned Matt Brannon, fastest, then Vesa Silgren, Mike Miller, Braden Connolly. And then, let's see, in F production, it's the Ken Kennard and Mason Workman show. Both Kennard in the Acura Integra, Workman in the Mazda Miata. 1 second separating them at the line today. In qualifying, Peter Tonelli, who I think we saw at Coda, probably not Coda, at NOLA a couple weeks ago, and of course Mark Webber rounding out the top 4 there. And I think that covers all of our 5 classes here in this session. All right, let's make a final call to the grid, Brendan, for our next group, and then we'll take a quick break. Tension in the paddock. Final call to the grid for race group number 3, Formula Atlantic and Continental, Formula Enterprises 2, Formula X, Prototype 1, and Prototype 2. Race group number 3, Formula Atlantic, Continental, Enterprises 2, and Formula X, Prototype 1, and Prototype 2 racers. Please head to the grid. Your qualifying session starting in just a few moments. We'll be right back.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, and now brakes and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts on both street and track. As official tire retailer of SCCA since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trial Nationals, and National Tour and Track Night in America. Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco's trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS. Get more bang for your buck at SummitRacing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands, parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for SCCA and provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. Hagerty also provides guaranteed value coverage and even has protection for your trailer. Did you know that SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty? Hagerty, let's drive together. Learn more at Hagerty.com.
Did you know that SCCA members save $20 on every Track Night in America they sign up for? That's right. Track Night in America, driven by Tire Rack, now hosting 150 events at more than 30 tracks across the country, is the easiest and most affordable way to get you and your friends on track in your street cars all season long. Visit tracknightinamerica.com to learn more and get yourself on track.
Welcome back to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, everybody, and the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Brandon Kazmarek, and heading out on track now. Brendan is our first of two open wheel groups of the event. We're going to see the second open wheel group. They're going to be going out for their final qualifying session actually tomorrow morning. So it'll be the only one that we see here this afternoon. It's the real fast Formula cars like our Formula Atlantics. And of course, you see here the first cars coming up through the S's towards turn 5, our prototype cars that have one good amount of horsepower, a lot of downforce. Some of these corners, as we were talking about, going through turn 1 or going through turn 12, you know, they're just flat on it, and the car will just stick. The faster they go, the better they handle through some of these corners.
I appreciate that these cars aren't everybody's cup of tea, but I would drink gallons of this tea. It is so my tea. It is everything that I and many people would want in a race car, right? Like you say, lots of power, lots of downforce, lots of tire, no weight.
None.
Right?
None.
So, I mean, you might be dab the brakes down a gear into turn one. You might be flat or nearly flat through the S's. Right? Top gear, top speed at the end of the back straightaway, 150 plus in a Formula Atlantic. Prototypes are probably high 150s, low 160s. And then you're possibly short braking. Thus far across the start-finish line. The number 93 heads across the line. It's a black car with a little bit of yellow trim and a vertical fin on the back of that prototype machine. I'll find it here in live timing. That's the first time I've seen that on an SCCA club racing prototype. It's a little bit of stability there. I gotta put a password on this thing now.
All right, so here as we've got cars already starting their first flying laps. You know, Brennan, as we were talking about how quick some of these cars are. John McAleer, who is, I believe, our Prototype 1 track record holder here, and I believe also has the fastest ever lap in SCCA racing at this track. He turned in a this is at the event called the American Road Race of Champions, and this is in November, and it's very, very cool. Usually ambient air temperatures somewhere in the 40s, low 50s. He turned in a 1:16.419 at that event. Fastest lap this morning, a little bit off that pace at 1:19 and change. Actually, we'll call it 1:20 flat. But just to give you an idea how quick some of these machines will go, Todd Vanacore, who is our reigning national champion, he was turned in a 1:20.061 to over 2.54 miles, 69 thousandths of a second separating those two drivers, and Wade Richardson quite a bit off of that pace. In Prototype 2, Lucian Pancia turned in a 1:26 flat. He was about 1.4 seconds up on Sherman Chow. Michael Moulton, third fastest. And then if we jump over to the Formula Atlantics, which are the fastest of the winged Formula cars that we have out here, Bruce Hamilton, our fastest driver, a 1:22.548 with Paul Riveras, just about 3.8 seconds back from there. Rocco Magni and Jerome Mee, as I think I was saying all the time at NOLA, Jerome Mee, fourth fastest in Atlantics. Brandon Dixon, fastest Formula Continental driver this morning, 1:25.97. Tim Miner, only 34 thousandths of a second off of that time with a 1:26 flat. Then Matt McDonough, your third fastest driver in Formula Enterprises 2. Well, we just had Dave Pinterick up here a little while ago. Dave was talking about putting Franklin Futrell, who is I believe our reigning Spec Racer Ford national champion, but he's also taken, I believe, championships in FE2. Franklin Futrell turned in a 1:23.212 this morning in our first qualifying session, a full second up on Jason Conzo and on Russ Turner, who Russ is your reigning national champion in FE2. Russ turned in a 1:24.341. And a real nice Formula Enterprise 2 field here this weekend. We've got 14 drivers that set times in qualifying. Brad All right, and look at this. Wow, as they're coming down into turn 10A, under braking 3 of our Formula Enterprise 2 machines. Hard on the brakes there, and they're coming down through turn 12. Still fanned out 2 and all, 2 wide, almost 3 wide, coming down the hill here. Probably not the fastest way to set a qualifying time, but they're certainly trying to stretch their legs early on. Brad Yake, we just saw him come through turn 1 in that yellow Formula Mazda. We'll see him crest the hill here in a second. There's Brad, the one Formula car that doesn't look like the others. Very short, stubby nose and single pylon rear wing. He's our sole Formula X driver here in the session. All right, let's break things down here. We'll take a look at how some of these classes are starting to play out here in our second session. They get quite a bit warmer than these drivers experienced early on. Ambient air temperature now here at Road Atlanta, about 65 degrees when they went out this morning. Probably somewhere around 15 degrees cooler. Track temperatures, because, again, overcast skies, sun hasn't really shown its face here yet today. The track temperature is probably fairly similar. In FE2 right now, Jason Conzo, your fastest driver, a 123.910. It's about 7/10 off of what Frank Futrell turned in this morning. Russ Turner, second fastest right now, about a quarter of a second. Actually, about 0.12 of a second back. And then Frank Futrell, about 4/10 off of Jason Conzo's times. In Formula Continental, and a nice sized Continental field as well. We've got 6 drivers who have put in qualifying times, and for the second session in a row, Brandon Dixon, your fastest driver in a citation. He's out of Northport, Illinois this morning, a 125.976. This afternoon, a 125.295. So he has picked up over 0.6 of a second and has about an 8/10 of a second advantage over Tim Miner in this session. Tim was only 34 hundredths back, or probably 34 thousandths back from Dixon this morning. Hartley McDonald, third fastest driver right now. Hartley in the number 27 machine, just now passing the start finish line. 129.085 fast time there. Let's take a look at our prototype machines. We'll start off with prototype 2 with Lucian Pancia, your fastest driver, currently a 124.22. With Lucian Pancia currently at 124.22. Wow, 1.7 seconds faster than he ran this morning. Sherman Chow trying to keep pace with that. Sherman was almost a second and a half off of Pancia this morning. Now Sherman Chow down to a 124.536. So Chow has picked up almost 3 seconds from what he ran this morning. He's currently 0.3 off with the provisional pole set by Pancia. Michael Moulton, third fastest in prototype 1. Todd Vanacore goes to the top of the leaderboard here in this session, a 119.119. And we've got a car off. Let's see where this is. This is right coming out of turn number 5. Right at the exit of turn number 5, we can see sitting center of track right there. And so we've got a local caution. It looks like another car has now gone around as well. And this is one of the challenges there as the drivers see that waving flag coming into turn 5. They let out of the throttle, and you can see them now as they're coming up the hill towards that local caution. As they are laying out of the throttle, and it appears as we are going to a black flag condition. So we're going to be trying to collect all the cars and get them onto the pit lane, as we've got at least one more car that's come around. And again, a very challenging place there, especially if you got a car mid-track. You will see that local caution. You want to let out of the throttle. It lightens up the rear of the car as they come through there, which is definitely very difficult on them. And then the drivers, they may be adjusting as they figure out where those cars are. As we can see, 2 of them are off drivers left. And so We are going to black flag conditions here as we see emergency services teams responding. And it looks like, from what we can tell here from this view, it appears that both of the drivers on the cars on the left-hand, driver's left, on the same side as that emergency services team. Looks like both of the drivers have managed to climb out of the cars, and we've got some emergency services teams responding to that car, driver's right. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Actually, what I'm going to do is we are now almost halfway through the session. We're about 11 and a half minutes into this 25-minute session. We've got just about 13 and a half minutes remaining. I'm going to make a first call to the grid for our next group, then we'll take a quick break. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. First call to the grid for race group number 4, Touring 2, Touring 3, Touring 4, and Spec MX5. Please start heading to the grid. Race group number 4, Touring 2, Touring 3, Touring 4, and Spec MX5. Please head to the grid. And as we're under black flag conditions here at Road Atlanta, we'll be right back.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, and now brakes and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts on both street and track. As official tire retailer of SCCA since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trial Nationals, and National Tour and Track Night in America. Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco's trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
Get more bang for your buck at SummitRacing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands. Parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your racing weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
It's the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, the premier amateur road racing series bringing together top SCCA road racers from around the country. The Hoosier Super Tour visits some of the greatest tracks in North America, showcasing each of our 28 car classes. From production to GT cars, prototype to formula cars, the Hoosier SCCA Super Tour packs a ton of wheel-to-wheel racing action into every event.
And welcome back to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Brendan Kazmarek, and we are currently under black flag conditions here as part of our open wheel qualifying, open wheel and prototype qualifying session. And I have maybe a little bit of info, although they are not required for our drivers. It appears as though at least one of the drivers that was involved in the multiple incidents over at Turn 5 was running one of the Flagtronic systems, and we believe one of them is Franklin Futrell, driver of the number 97 FE2 machine, and Franklin was our fastest driver in qualifying this morning. Third fastest at the time the session was black flagged. Now, we do have now about 9 minutes remaining on the clock for this session. The clock keeps running under black flag conditions, so we may be able, it looked like we still had a number of vehicles out on track over by turn 5, the exit of turn 5. We may be able to go back and get more cars out on course, or get cars back out on course to maybe turn in another couple of flying laps, but that is all dependent on how quickly we get the 3 race cars that were over there collected. Let's take a quick look at the order, and I'm going to try and make some sense of the times that have come in so far in this session, and we'll kind of merge them together. I'm going to do a little mind melding, actually mental math in my head, which is, for those of you that know me, is very, very difficult to try and make sense of at least where the first couple of rows are for each one of our classes here. So Frank Futrell this morning turned in a 123.212, and that is still about 7/10 up on Jason Conzo. Conzo, fastest driver in this session, with a time of 123.910, about 3/10 faster than he ran this morning, but still only good for second fastest between the 2 sessions. Russ Turner out of Montpelier, Virginia, driving the number 32 machine, second fastest in this session, third fastest this morning, and pretty darn let's see, Turner a 124.035 in this session. That is just about 3/10 of a second faster than he ran earlier today. Paul Schneider, 4th fastest this morning, 4th fastest this afternoon. This morning you ran a 124.849, and a little bit off that pace today, down to a 125.5 here in this session. And then we've got Steve Whitston of the Formula V Whitstons running this morning a 125.842. That was the 5th fastest time of the morning session. And Porter Aiken, who was just a little bit off of Whitston's pace this morning, and was 6th fastest. Aiken driving the number 99 machine. He is out of Dawsonville, Georgia, so not that far away from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. He was a little bit faster than Whitston this morning, so let's take a look. Whitston this morning, 125.842. Aiken this afternoon, a 125.555. So Porter Aiken should start again if we don't get any more green flag laps in here in qualifying. Likely Aiken would start 5th. Starting next to him would be Steve Whitston. That would be row number third row for FE2. Let's jump over to the prototypes. Let's jump over to the prototypes for a second. We talked about Pancia and Chow. Lucian Pancia for the second session, your fastest driver, with about 3/10 on Sherman Chow. Michael Moulton, 3rd fastest, and then Brian Lindstrom, about 2 seconds off of Moulton's times. In prototype 1, Todd Vanacore, 119.119. And what did I say the track record was in prototype 1 that John McAleer set earlier, or this fall? He turned in a 116.419. So Vanacore is about 3 seconds off, or about 2.5 seconds off that time. But Vanacore currently your provisional pole sitter, with let's change that. John McAleer is, no, I was actually right. Todd Vanacore, your provisional pole sitter. He was 0.8 of a second faster than John McAleer's times from this morning. Wade Richardson, your 3rd fastest driver in prototype 1. If we jump over to Formula Atlantic, Bruce Hamilton, fastest driver in both sessions. Hamilton with a 122.5 this morning and a 123.6 this afternoon. And then Jerome Mee and Paul Rivera, 2nd and 3rd fastest this afternoon. Riveras this morning ran a 26.34, and Jerome Mee about a second and a half faster than that, a 24.8 So still 1.2 seconds separating Hamilton from me. But Paul Rivera's now your third fastest driver, and then Rocco Magni, fourth fastest in Formula Atlantic. In Formula Continental, Brandon Dixon in his citation, your fastest driver. He picked up about a little bit less than 7/10 this afternoon from this morning, but has almost an 0.8 of a second advantage over Tim Minor, currently in Minor's citation.
Greg, one of the advantages of being ahead of schedule and starting ahead of schedule is that it does give us a little bit of extra flexibility with timing. And just got some word that we are going to attempt to add some time to this session.
Okay.
We obviously only got about 10 minutes in before this incident all kicked off, and we've lost, 10 plus 12 minutes now since then. So less than half the session was run under green. Under no obligation to add time, but given the ability and opportunity, you'd always love to get the allowed time there for our open wheel and prototype drivers. So we'll await further word on that, but do anticipate being able to get these cars back out for a couple of laps at least to round out Q2.
All right, as it's coming down the pit lane now from that incident site, looks like Paul Farmer, driver of the number 11 Formula Continental, the Radon RN10 chassis, was one of the cars involved, and missing a nose cone, but not doesn't look like
There's a little bit used up there.
Yeah.
You could see it on the camera, couldn't you, Greg? It's a blind crest. That's the reason we have the camera there, because you are pointed at the sky.
Right. We had a much better view from turn 6 pointed back towards turn 5 than the drivers have coming through turn 5.
And there's speculation in the chat as to suspension failures. Whether it's a failure or some type of car got out of shape, it's just a bad place for things like that to happen. Yes. So a quick cleanup job, though. Great work by the fine folks at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta to get everything cleared up down there at the exit of 5. And
I think we can tell. It looks like maybe some fluid was put down. It looks as though they're putting some kitty litter down on the track over there and trying to get it ground into the pavement as well. So that's part of the equation. So thankfully, I mean, it is, for the most part, drivers left. It's not where cars would normally exit that corner. The question is, and what we can't see, is how far down, if there's any of that fluid that extends from the apex of turn 5 up, or if it was simply an offshoot of how the car went around and might have impacted the wall.
Yeah. I do have a couple of cars that have decided not to take advantage of any additional track time in this session and have bailed out back to the paddock, leaving, looks like about a half a dozen. Maybe some FXs in there. There's a P2 towards the back, and then a Formula Atlantic at the very, very back of the lineup. That may or may not go back in here.
I'm looking at somewhere around right now, Brendan, maybe 6 or 8 cars that are still queued up, ready to go out if the decision is there to send them back out. And again, we're still waiting on a little bit more information from race control as to what the story is there, but again, still a little bit of cleanup going out on track. This, as I mentioned, I think as we had this group start to go out, this is going to be our only open wheel racing group of the afternoon. We will have our final qualifying session for our second open wheel group for the smaller non-winged open wheel cars, Formula F, Formula V, Formula 6. They will be heading out. They're the 8th and final group, so they'll be heading out. They'll be the last qualifying session before we go racing tomorrow morning.
Well, they're scheduled to go out, Greg.
That is true.
Whether or not we see any or many takers for that second qualifying session in the morning, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So one of the things in leading up to this event, and I want to thank Ryan for putting the schedule up so you can see what the rest of our Super Tour schedule is. Here we'll be back in just a couple of weeks here, in just a couple hours north of here at Virginia International Raceway in early May, probably early April, and then heading out to Oklahoma to the Hallett Motor Racing Circuit in Jennings, Oklahoma, mid to late April. But one of the things about this event, there was a schedule change just before most of the drivers came to the facility. The original schedule for today was supposed to be made up of a practice session in the morning and then qualifying in the afternoons, that there was only going to be one qualifying session to set the grids for tomorrow's sprint races. And the decision was made to convert that practice session to another qualifying session. The thought being that, especially if it starts raining later in the day today, if it's going to be raining tomorrow morning, and we expect a pretty good amount of precipitation tomorrow, that racers might be able to get in a dry weather qualifying session with the chance that they may race in the dry as well.
I do anticipate, and I think most of us anticipate, that we'll be drying by the time we get to race days or race hours tomorrow afternoon. I think the concern was that this would start slightly earlier, and initially that was in the forecast, that Friday would be the damp day and it would clear out by Saturday morning. That's obviously pushed back, and now we're anticipating a lot of rain overnight, 2+ inches of rain, on top of the 1.5 inches of rain that Brazelton got earlier this week. So there is a slight chance that we all show up here tomorrow morning and the bottom of the Essos is a river. It's happened before, right? I mean, we had similarly torrential downpours and thunderstorms actually at the beginning of Sunday last year. Yeah, I remember putting cameras out in the pouring rain, thinking there's no way we're going to go racing like this in the dark 10 minutes after sunrise.
I was going to say, and sunrise was only 10 minutes before the first cars were supposed to start their pace lap.
But we did. The advantage here is that this isn't a race session. We're not showing up first thing in the morning to do 35 minutes of racing. Instead, we're giving drivers the opportunity to go out and do some rain driving, maybe get some experience, feel out a car issue, whatever the case might be, but you're at that point not under any obligation to go out and set competitive lap times. It's a minimum risk scenario considering what we're anticipating from a weather perspective. And for me, and I'm sure anybody else who has to write a check to go racing, this is the ideal outcome. So it's ultimate flexibility, and the drivers were polled. This isn't,
exactly.
Sprung on them, but
this was their choice, actually. Yeah.
And the SCCA and the leadership, both in the region and in the SCCA Super Tour, the Hoosier Super Tour, were able to follow through. So all good things in the face of what we expect to be a little bit of weather-related adversity tomorrow morning.
So, my suggestion, of course, is if you're a Formula F driver, is you go and get on an iRacing rig and learn the rain line very quickly tonight. Since Formula F,
great idea.
Yeah, since Formula F is one of the cars. For those of you that don't know, the iRacing platform introduced rain and what they're calling their Tempest weather system. And absolutely an amazing thing that can give you variable weather and the track can dry out, but you'll get rain lines based on how much the track gets used, and the Formula F cars are one of the chassis that system works with.
This place is tricky enough in the dry. Any additional advantage or experience you can get putting laps in the rain, with all of the really unique or tricky elements of racing in the rain, having to find different lines, staying off of the rubbered in line, you'll take any opportunity you can. I just got word we're going to be adding 17 minutes back onto the clock.
Okay.
I was anticipating a handful of minutes, enough to go out and put in some time to get the tires back up to temperature. But the number is 17 minutes added, 42 minutes total.
That's a huge amount to this session, and I'm wondering if a lot of the drivers that decided to take their cars back to the paddock, if they may, depending on, and I don't know if we've heard whether or not they're giving a 5-minute warning yet, but we may see some drivers actually bring their cars back and maybe at least get a couple of laps in. So we'll definitely be checking that. And actually, we've just gotten word from the folks at iRacing that they're no longer referring to it as Tempest.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, it is now the iRacing weather system.
Oh, interesting.
I guess they were worried about why they didn't implement hurricanes or something during their sessions. All right, well, now we know, because they're actually sending cars back out on track now. You can see them in our view here coming off the pit lane. And Brendan, as you said, we're supposed to have another 17 minutes added to the clock. Our timing and scoring system a little funky right now, showing about 11 minutes remaining. But we'll give you the breakdown here as things go on, we'll also try to track down which cars have gone back out on course. And it is certainly not the full contingent. It looks like a smaller section of our entire field. So we'll give our drivers a couple more moments to work their out laps here. Again, fastest drivers in the session before we went to the black flag. Bruce Hamilton in Formula Atlantic, with Jerome Mee second fastest in Formula Continental. Brandon Dixon with Tim Miner and Hartley McDonald in FE2. Jason Conzo, Charles Russell Turner, Frank Futrell. And then in Formula X, our sole racer in the class, Brett Yakins, Formula Mazda. Prototype 1, Todd Vanacord, a 1 minute 19.119. That's the fastest lap of the session. And then Lucian Pancia, our fastest P2 driver, with Sherman Chow, Michael Moulton, and trying to pick out now, and we'll see in a moment as drivers are coming across the timing loop, who it is who have drivers that have gone back out. And I'm also
Not
trying
many.
to, yeah.
We talked about Franklin Futrell and Sherman Chow. The good news here, Greg, and I'm looking at the timing screen from earlier on in the session. I was away from the microphone for a little bit. It's very jumbled in terms of classes.
Yes.
Right? P1, FA, and FE2 cars make up the top 3 overall. Now, we anticipate to some degree the field being separated. Oftentimes, you'll get the Formula Atlantics and Continentals up with the prototypes at the front, and then FE2s will take a separate start a couple of seconds behind the initial green flag. Here, everything is kind of jumbled together.
Right.
And when you've got different cars making speed different ways,
yeah.
In cars that are meant to be very obviously part of a ladder system and making speed, in their own way, it can create a little bit of
Mayhem.
chaos. Yeah, well, that was a guess, exactly.
Yeah.
It's tough to get consistently clear air.
Right.
You watch in Formula One, cars will back up, headed into the final sequence of corners to try and get clear on your nose,
You
not
start to-
sit in the wake.
Yeah, you might have a very different wake as you come up out of turn 7 on Brad Yates' Formula X car, Formula Mazda,
Yes.
versus coming up onto the back of, well, you're likely not going to be coming up on the back of a P1 car. I mean, if you're driving in Atlanta, yeah, maybe.
But here, because it is so jumbled, you could leave 3 or 4 seconds out in front, and if you get a really good run through 1, up over the crest of the hill at 3, down through the S's, you could find yourself in the braking zone at 6 and 7 with a car that hasn't been quite on it, let's say.
Right.
And then balked at that sequence of corners before they run away from you down the straight because they've got more horsepower.
Right.
And it becomes very tricky to manage. And I just wonder if maybe taking the opportunity to set 2 laps in this bonus time here might allow you the clear air that you were looking for in those early chaotic
That's
minutes.
true. That is certainly true here. And for example, we've been watching out for Sherman. I believe this is Sherman Chow coming down the back straight right now in his prototype 2 entry. And we'll know here in just a moment when he comes down the hill. Indeed, as he has now, I think the entire rest of the prototype 2 field, Lucian Pancia, who's been our fastest driver all session, Michael Moulton, Brian Lindstrand, I think they've all gone back to the paddock. And now, indeed, crossing the stripe, Sherman Chow just now turns his 9th lap, trying to close that gap down to Pancia. He doesn't improve this time by.
Only needs about 3/10.
Yeah.
Not much he's got to pick up, and you start to feel the car out a little bit, feel the tires come up to temperature and pressure once again, even with a heat cycle in them or an additional heat cycle in them. May be able to claw back those 3/10. I want to make one other point, then we're going to take one more commercial break here during this extra time. We talked to David Pinterick about needing to be brave here.
Yes.
What that says is this rewards drivers. It rewards drivers who are willing to drive close to the limit. And when we say cars make their speed in different ways, and you would anticipate a natural laddering of the classes in this group especially, what you're seeing in the timing screen is a reward of drivers who are willing to push and be close to the limit. Jason Conzo in the number 4 FE2 is 0.3 of a second behind the fastest 4-wheel in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
And Conzo also picked up almost, I think, like 2.5 seconds or so
exactly
from this morning. And a lot of that is, you know, getting to a comfort level and thinking, well, you know, and looking at the data, knowing you could have pushed harder in certain corners and being able to turn that theoretical fast lap into a true fast lap.
Trusting that the car is going to stick there with you. We know these are high-speed corners. They're short braking zones. You've got to push it and trust that the downforce is going to be there and the grip is going to be there when you tip it into the corners.
Yeah.
So let's take one more quick commercial break
Sounds
here,
good.
Greg. We'll say hello to our partners and sponsors, come back on the other side and wrap up the checkered flag after the bonus, or during the bonus time here during Group 3, and we'll make one more call to the grid for Group 4 here as well.
It looks like most of them are already to the grid already, but let's make one final call for race group number 4. That's SMX, Spec MX5, Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. Please head to the grid. Touring 2, Touring 3, Touring 4, and SMX drivers, please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next, and we'll be right back.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your racing weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, and now brakes and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts on both street and track. As official tire retailer of SCCA since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trial Nationals, and National Tour and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco's trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit BravoTrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
If you like what you see today, become part of the action by joining the Sports Car Club of America. Whether you want to drive, flag, organize, officiate, have fun with cars, or meet 65,000 enthusiast friends, SCCA offers plenty to feed your motorsports obsession. Ask someone trackside about how to get involved or visit SCCA.com for more information.
Welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour Round 7 and 8. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Brendan Kazmarek, and we are getting ready to wrap up our qualifying session here for our open wheel racers, a more limited portion of the entire field. We had a number of our drivers head back to the paddock after the black flag session that we had a little bit earlier, but we do have drivers now starting to turn in fast laps, Brendan, so good thing. Hey, you're Brian also. So, you know, good thing that some of these drivers stayed out. We just had Eric Presby in the number 35 Van Diemen out of Louisville, Texas, turned in his fastest lap of the session, a 1:30.255. That's good for fourth fastest. in the session. Brad Yake, he's our sole Formula X driver out on course here in his Star Formula Mazda, but he just turned in a 134.337, and I think that's a little bit faster than he ran this morning. As a matter of fact, we talk about getting that comfort level. Yake is almost 2 full seconds faster than what he ran this morning. And then let's see, in FE2, Russ Turner now turns in a 123.912. That is 2 1,000ths of a second off of Jason Conzo's fast lap of the session.
Man, what a time from Russ Turner. And, I was just thinking about this during the break. We had Jason Conzo in this booth last year. This weekend.
Yeah.
Had no idea who he was.
He just walked in, sat down, and said, "Hi, I'm Jason Conzo." And then I still look down and go, well, who are you? And then I go, oh, that's right. And Conzo, it was his very first time here at Road Atlanta. He had come here with, oh my gosh, former national champion in the class. It'll come back. Oh, he was here with Bailey Monette.
That's it.
And Bailey brought him up. They sat down, and Conzo, his very first session on track was, I think, on either provisional pole or he was second fastest here.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Bailey kind of helped get him up to speed in the FE2. And we come back a year later. It's a year's worth of experience in the car. I'm sure more trips since then. And it's not just, you don't need necessarily the combination of those things at the same time, but having more experience with the car and being more confident in what the FE2 can provide, and having a little bit more track time at Road Atlanta, you put those things together, and now all of a sudden you are 2,000ths of a second up on ostensibly one of the quickest cars nationally.
Well, you're reigning national champion.
Reigning national champion. There you go.
Exactly. And so Conzo, I mean, he's got a. Well, there are some big questions here because your provisional pole sitter, Frank Luttrell, the folks from Comprent, the folks who do the work on his car and provide that car, they've got probably a lot of work to do to get it ready for tomorrow's race. But Conzo, he theoretically has to find 6 or 7 tenths of a second to be up there with Luttrell. And Conzo, he's not out on track right now. He called it a day when we had the black flag.
And it almost didn't work out for Jason. Almost. By 2,000ths of a second, it did. So he'll start on the FE2 pole. Do not miss this race tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. We will be live with Group 3 at 11:10, give or take some time. It'll be the third race of the morning once we get our 25-minute race 1 sessions underway. We'll obviously be following all the action, but this FE2 battle in particular is going to be spectacular.
Spectacular, spicy is what I was thinking. All right, and so as you can imagine, checkered flag is out on the session, and the majority of the racers that were still circulating, they have now come down the pit lane. And so I don't know if there's a need to make another call to the grid because most of them have been sitting here waiting for patiently for almost 20 minutes. So what Brendan and I are going to do, we're going to take another quick little break, and we'll be back here in a few moments. Next up, going back to the tin top cars, it's going to be our touring car, the majority of our touring car classes, and also Spec Miata's big brother, Spec MX-5. We'll be back here in just a few moments from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for the hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid. Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, and now brakes and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts on both street and track. As official tire retailer of SCCA since 1995 and sponsor the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trials Nationals and National Tour, and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your racing weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
Get more bang for your buck at summitracing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands. Parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. Gregg Ginsberg along with Brendan, not Brian Kasmerick. Kasmerick.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
So deep.
Inside, you think the old guys used to do inside jokes all the time. Wow. Anyway, sorry about that. Welcome back, everybody. We've got now heading out on course. You see them coming down the hill for their outlap. Our Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4 racers, as well as Spec MX5 racers as well. And Brendan, I wanted to share this with you.
Uh-oh.
Okay. This wasn't in the YouTube chat. This is from Chris Severt, who is Morgan Meller, who is a T4 racer. He runs a T4 and C Miata. He's out of the North Carolina region. And he says this. I'm going to read this in its entirety. Okay.
Right.
For those of you that feel triggered by that tone, by the tones that we always play going in the sessions, he goes, so I have the Road Atlanta Super Tour coverage on the living room TV. Thank you, Chris. Watching Q2 for Spec Miata currently. Dolly, who's our dog. For those of you who don't know her, and I'm assuming most everybody listening here doesn't know Dolly.
No.
Okay, she'll often watch TV, and Chris is a little surprised that she's not already watching qualifying, because Spec Miata is one of the classes that gets her attention in person, and instead her usual post, and she's at her usual post in front of the picture window at the front of their house, and Chris says, until Gregg Ginsberg's grid chime, she immediately jerked up and watched for a minute like she does at the track, and she ran to the front of the TV, and so I want to thank Dolly for watching. Maybe you want to thank Chris for watching, but filling us in. And I know, like I said, I know those things are triggering. All I can say to you is never fly through Narita, the Tokyo airport.
So it may be triggering, but it got us an extra viewer.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean,
I don't know if Dolly's going to be able to give us 4 paws up or to subscribe to the. By the way, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and give us a big paws up here and subscribe to the SCCA official YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it, and of course, click that notification bell. You can find out about all the times we go live. It's not just Super Tour racing, but the SCCA posts a lot of behind the scenes and how-to about fun with cars videos all the time. So definitely go ahead and do that. As we've got our Spec MX-5 drivers now, a good portion of them coming out of turn 12 and starting their first flying laps. And there happens to be one big black C5 Chevy Corvette mixed in with them. You know, which one doesn't, which one is not the same as others. All right, and we'll have some times coming in here in just a few moments. So let's, if we take a look at how this qualifying session wrapped up this morning in SMX. Let's take a look. Their fastest driver was Michael Tinnis, who Mike finished on the podium at Sebring at the first rounds. I think on the Sunday race, I think he finished second, if I remember right. Michael is out of East Meadow, New York. I used to race Michael in ITB. He used to race a Volkswagen car. Will Robusto, your second fastest driver, about a quarter of a second off of Tinnis's times. Cam Hibbett, then another 0.3 back from there. And then Helio Mesa, who I think also finished on the podium at Sebring, fourth fastest, and Max Schweid, fifth fastest. Got a chance to meet Max's parents at the Southeast Division SCCA Minicon and Awards Banquet a couple of weeks ago, and I think I upset them when I told them that I wasn't Greg Kramer, which is who they thought I was.
You don't sound anything like. Not even close.
Yeah, I know.
You have one more G than he does.
That's the only advantage that we have. Maybe if good old ML. Wow. All right, so let's take a look beyond SMX. All right, let's take a look at some of the touring car classes. In Touring 4, Mark Cephalo, I think, has already come home with at least one gold medal here on the Super Tour this season.
The pride of Sawyerville, Pennsylvania.
It's not Sawyersville.
That's correct.
Nicole Cooper Cephalo.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, is going to have something to say about it. But he was your fastest driver, 140.503. Kevin Fryer, now out of Raleigh, North Carolina, formerly out of the Chicago area, formerly out of the Washington, D.C. area, with a 141.032. And then Angelica Spray. Angelica coming all the way from Tejas and driving a Toyota GR86. She's from Oak Point, Texas. Was your third fastest driver. Pretty darn close, only 0.9 of a second separating the top three. Add in Richard Mooney, 1 second separating our top four drivers. In Touring 3, Simon Foulweather, your fastest driver. And Simon with a time of 1:36.877. And we'll see. I don't think Simon is taking his car out for this qualifying session. Looks like he's hoping to rest on his laurels from this morning. And he's still got about 0.4 up on Gamel Aguilar Gomez in his Nissan 370Z, who was our second fastest driver today, and he was about 1900ths back of Foulweather during this morning's qualifying session. Then we've got Richard Baldwin. Richard driving his Nissan 350Z. Had a great weekend at NOLA Motorsports Park a couple of weeks ago. Of course, he lives in Covington, Louisiana, pretty much a stone's throw from NOLA. Colin Harrison was your Todd Clark was your fifth fastest driver behind Ryan Spray. And Ryan is Angelica's husband, and he is driving, I believe, one of the turbocharged Ford Mustangs in that class in Touring 3. And then finally, in Touring 2, I swear we'll get through this eventually. Touring 2, two drivers, Michael Kamalian driving the number 99 machine, Kamalian driving a Ford Mustang. That's a big change for him. He had been running GT Light Mazda Miata for a number of years, and Kamalian almost 8.5 seconds up on Carl Fung this morning. So again, we've got our first times coming in now. And Ryan, if we can get to the camera, drivers coming up towards turn 3. We see a lot of the MX-5 machines going through turn 7 here, but stay on this camera if we can, because you are going to see a train. And I know this camera's been giving us trouble, but we were talking about using the draft and setting qualifying times in Spec Miata. This is using the draft and setting qualifying times both in Spec MX-5 and also T4, because the last 2 cars in this train coming out of turn 5 right now, I believe both of those are our T4. One of them is T4. That is Mark Cephalo in his Touring 4 NC Miata, and again, that other group right back there, all looking to set fast laps here in qualifying. As we are 8 minutes in, let's take a look. Jack Murchison driving the number 158 machine this weekend. Now we're showing him from being from Sykesville, Maryland, instead of from Colorado. Jack, remember at NOLA, was racing with his father was also racing. Jack is actually a professional ski instructor in his, when he's not racing. He's out of Colorado, currently has a 97 thousandths of a second advantage over Fort Mill, South Carolina's Will Robusto. Robusto had a number of wins in the predecessor to Spec MX-5, what was known as Spec MX-5 Challenge in previous years. Don Squire, who had also run in the series out of Peachtree Corners, Georgia, third fastest with Matt Novak out of Bartlett, Illinois. Ethan Jacobs, currently your top 5. Michael Tinnis, who we saw early on at the top of the leaderboard, he is currently your 6th fastest driver, and I think many of these drivers are all in that big train that we were watching before. If you remember, we talked about during our very first qualifying session of the broadcast, Spec Miata, how the top 17 drivers were all within 1 second of one another. Well, the top 17 SMX drivers, Spec MX-5 drivers, they are all within a full second. Actually, if you don't mind pushing it back to 1 minute and 41 1/1000ths, top 17 all within a second of one another, and the top 26 all within 2 seconds of one another. All right, so let's take a look now and see where we stand in Touring 3. Well, Gamel Aguilar Gomez now with a time of 1:37.205, so he still has not quite gotten to that provisional pole time that Simon Foulweather set this morning. And Richard Baldwin with a 1:37.592, about a 10th off of what he did earlier today. Colin Harrison now. Harrison was our 6th fastest driver in this morning's qualifying session. This morning he had a 1:38.173. He is now down to a 1:37.909. So he's picked up a little bit of time here, but not enough to leapfrog Todd Clark or Ryan Spray, who sit just below him in today's session. In Touring 2, again, it is Carl Fung is our sole driver that went out for this afternoon session. Michael Kamalian, who had about an 8.7 second advantage over Fung this morning. Kamalian's kept his car behind the wall. So the Chevy Corvette, the Z06 Corvette of Fung, now down to a 1:48.702 in this session. That's still 1.3 seconds off of where he was this morning. And if we jump over to Touring 4, Mark Cephalo, once again, your fastest driver in the session. He's still looking for a couple tenths here. This morning he ran a 40.5. He's at a 40.7 right now. And Kevin Fryer is, this morning ran a 41 flat, and Fryer a 41.47. Here we go, and let's take a look at the different, we were talking before with Brendan about some of the different speeds in the Formula cars, and you can see here, in these, this is the wonder of multi-class racing. Coming out of turn 7 on this long straightaway, and you've got some of the touring cars like these Mustangs that they may not handle on rails like the NC Miatas, but they've got a heck of a lot more speed in a straight line And we see a lot. Wow, got awfully crowded there for a moment, coming underneath the Fox Factory Bridge there to start turn 12 as a number of our NC Miatas have decided to come down the pit lane rather than continue on in traffic. And I think the first car to come off there is the number 32 machine. That is Cam Hibbett. Hibbett, who had been running in the top 3 in SMX, now finds himself 9th fastest in the session here. So let's take a look again in SMX. Not seeing fast laps set now by most of our SMX drivers as they've been dealing with traffic. There, again, this is the challenge of mixed class racing. The majority of the drivers in the top, as I go through, actually the top 24 drivers in SMX, with the exception of one, that being Michael Tinnis, set their fastest laps of the qualifying session either in lap 1 or lap 2. Michael Tinnis set it in lap number 5. But let's do this. We are a little bit past halfway in the session. Let's make a first call to the grid for our next group, and then we're going to take a quick little break. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. First call to the grid for race group number 5. That's Super Touring Light and Super Touring Under. STL and STU drivers, please head to the grid. Your qualifying session, our very last qualifying session of the afternoon, is coming up next. We'll be right back.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for SCCA and provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. Hagerty also provides guaranteed value coverage and even has protection for your trailer. Did you know that SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty? Hagerty, let's drive together. Learn more at Hagerty.com.
Get more bang for your buck at SummitRacing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands. Parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for the hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid. Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit HawkPerformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
If you like what you see today, become part of the action by joining the Sports Car Club of America. Whether you want to drive, flag, organize, officiate, have fun with cars, or meet 65,000 enthusiast friends, SCCA has plenty to feed your motorsport obsession. Ask someone trackside how to get involved, or visit SCCA.com for more information.
Did I say that? And welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. And it is round 7 and 8 here on the Super Tour. And as we are as the clock is starting to wind down on our touring car and Spec MX-5 qualifying session here. We've got the touch under 8 minutes now remaining. I was just going to say that, going through the break, not many cars were setting fast laps. That it appeared as though most of our racers got their purple laps or their green laps in like laps 1 and 2. We talked about SMX in particular there, all the way back through like the top 20 cars, all setting fast laps on lap 1 or 2. And just as I said that, Michael Borden on lap number 8, he moves up to 6th fastest in the SMX session, or SMX qualifying. Borden was a former national champion in Touring 4, took that championship, I believe, in 2020. I always get the Road America Championship and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Championship mixed up, but I believe it was 2020 where he took the win at his home track. He spent a couple of years as the series instructor for the scholarship winners in, again, what was previously known as Spec MX-5 Challenge. And he's out in a new car this season. So 6th fastest, 1/1000th of a second off of Ethan Jacobs, who is now your 5th fastest racer in the class. Ethan set his fastest lap on lap number 1. So again, Borden kind of taking his time to start going green here. As we look a little bit further through the field, another driver who just set a personal best, Kevin Fryer, in his Touring 4 Mazda. Just a moment ago, turned in a 140.981. That leaves him now a 1/4 of a second off of Mark Cephalo for that Touring 4 pole. But we are seeing more and more drivers start to bring their cars back to the pit lane and head back to the paddock. We just saw Ryan Spray in the green and white number 194 Ford Mustang retired to the paddock. Ryan is currently 4th fastest in the session in Touring 3. And looks like one of our E46 BMWs, another one of our T3 machines, has gone back to the paddock or probably not back to the paddock, but on the pit lane. Crew's looking over that car, and I believe that is, he's going to have, especially if you can hear me on the pit lane, he's going to have to forgive me if I misspell his name. Maybe I do need the Polish contingent in the booth to help me. Yeah, to help me out here. Ryan Sijakowski, driver of the number 09 E46 BMW.
Find him here.
Currently running 7th in Touring 3.
Said of the driver of the 09. Huh?
09. Ryan Sijakowski.
That's Szyakowski.
Szyakowski?
Szyakowski.
Okay.
Szyakowski. Szyakowski. Welcome to Polish 101, courtesy of DriversEye Live on the SCCA, anyway.
Yes, thank you. I feel like it's a Duolingo session.
That's right.
Going on right now.
You've broken your streak.
All right, Adrian Comstock in his Mazda MX-5, his SMX machine, just turns in his best lap of the session on lap number 10. That's good for 30th. I mean, it is tough going right now in MX-5.
I don't know if we made the point while I had stepped away briefly there, Greg. You had surmised earlier in the day that the Spec Miata Group 1 was the most heavily populated of our run groups this weekend. I think it's actually this group. We've got 48 cars that have turned to time and 5 more that are on the list but haven't.
Okay.
Including such names as Sergio Zlobin, Scotty B. White, David Oram, Simon Fowweather.
Right.
At 53 cars in all in group number 4, including 30 of those Spec MX-5s.
Yeah.
Right? So if you want to talk about some traffic density here.
Well, obviously, and most of them were taking up a good, the same quarter mile of the track as they were all on a train. I was also making the point right before we went to the break. much like Spec Miata, Brendan, where we had 17 drivers all within a second of one another, in the Spec MX-5, it was 17 drivers all within 1 second, and if we then go back to 2 seconds, 26 drivers all within 2 seconds here out of what is, I believe this to be the largest Spec MX-5 field of the season so far at 33 cars, or 33 drivers.
MX-5's gonna MX-5, Greg.
That's it.
Doesn't matter what gen you're running.
We talked earlier to Dave Panteric, former GT1 national champion, Trans Am winner. He is currently mired back in 25th position, but 25th position is only 1.8 seconds off of the pole.
Well, and we talked with David too about the idea of jumping into a brand new car.
Yes.
Right, allowing Franklin to jump into his TA1, his GT1 car, and immediately being within a couple of tenths of David. David obviously knows his way around a GT1 car, knows his way around Atlanta. And there's no shame in being a little bit slower or a lot slower than David.
Well, I was going to say right now, at 1.8 seconds back, not a lot.
But that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Now David has turned that around. He's the one jumping into a brand new car.
Right.
He's the national champion that is having to adapt to something that's a little bit less familiar to him.
Right.
And in particular, I mean, you've gone total opposite end of the spectrum. You've gone big power, big weight, skinny tires, and a really kind of difficult to wrangle type of car that you have to find yourself very comfortable in. You've swapped that around to a much more modern car, something that runs a much higher, or sorry, a much lower power to weight number, right? It makes much less power relative to its weight, and something you've got to really hustle and maximize track usage to get all the time.
To get all the time out of it, exactly. Keep opening that wheel up as much as possible. Scrub. So you're scrubbing tires as little as possible.
Yep.
And you know, he said something very interesting right at the beginning of our interview with him earlier. He says every car is a momentum car. It's just where you where you need to keep up the momentum is different between that and what he's been driving in this session versus, you know, an 800-pound monster of a GT1 car. And it's very true. You know, you watch some slower corners here at Road Atlanta where that GT1 car is likely coming through turn 7, for example, where he's going to be likely coasting through that one corner, waiting to get the car completely straightened up before he gets on the throttle. And it's a very different technique for these MX-5s where you are trail braking in. You are probably left foot braking and trying to get back onto the throttle as much as possible. As we watch a different type of drafting train coming down the back straight right now, Brendan, with a couple of Mustangs, with an NC Miata getting right in the draft and following them down the front straight. It looks like one of those Mustangs decided to call off the charge there and poke down to the inside going into 10A.
Might have done well there just to stay in line. I think pulling off to the inside of the braking zone there maybe
impacted the drivers that weren't expecting that to happen.
Yeah,
right there.
You're better off doing that coming onto the throttle out of 10A. They do pull now into the pit lane with the checkered flag waving here at start finish. You made the point about all cars are momentum cars, and it is well taken to some degree. You do want to conserve momentum, but you can see it visually on camera. And when this race goes green tomorrow morning, just before lunch, take a look at the way these MX-5s settle into turn number 5. Right, you're running through the SS. You're not quite flat, but full power coming up to the bottom of the hill. As you climb back up the hill headed into turn number 5, you'll see the car settle really hard on the right-hand side as it makes that initial left-hand turn into that corner at the bottom of the S's. In a GT1 car, you're not going to see anything like that. You can't hop the car onto its right side tires and expect it to grip. You are backing the corner up and getting the arc in early and straightening out the exit.
Yes.
So you can apply power headed up the hill without spinning the rear wheels up over the curb.
Right, where these MX-5, there's a lot more compliance in the suspension. You are relying a lot more on the grip that you're getting from those tires, and you get a lot more roll in the car. And that as you have that weight transfer, you've got to wait, and you you certainly don't want to get onto the throttle fully when the car is all loaded over, because you may have that inside rear wheel come up. But it's a much different strategy for getting through corners.
It's a better representation of a modern entry-level race car.
Yes.
Right? The MX-5 Cup, anything going up through the GT and prototype ranks, it represents something much closer to how compliant race cars, modern race cars actually are. And you can see it visually on our cameras from DriversEye Live. You can see it if you're standing trackside and joining us for our weekend here at the SCCA Hoosier Super Tour at Road Atlanta.
That's right. And, if you're listening and you're in the area here, I believe there is a gate fee to get in, but the views from Spectator Hill as you watch cars come down from turn 3 down through the S's and see that compression up through turn 5, it is one of the best places in North America to watch an auto race. So if you're within an hour or two, I definitely recommend. Maybe not in the rain tomorrow morning, but the weather's supposed to be pretty darn nice on Sunday. Come out and watch some great racing. All right, let's before we take a break, let's go and recap this session here where Jack Murchison was pretty much from lap 2 on your fastest SMX driver. He had a qualifying time of 1:39.307. But Michael Tinnis, who was our fastest driver this morning, he only managed to run 7th fastest in this session, but the 1:38.964 that he ran this morning, that is enough to put him on SMX pole for tomorrow's race. Again, this is a multi-class race. Likely the SMX racers will get a split start, I would suspect, especially given the size of the field, but not a guarantee. We'll see how that plays out. Will Robusto was your second fastest driver in both sessions. This morning he ran a 1:39.228. It's a little bit off that time this afternoon. I'm sorry. It was a little faster this morning. Dan Squirick was our third fastest driver in this session. He ran a 1:39.547. But Cam Hibbett, Elio Mazza, Max Schweid, Ethan Jacobs, also Matt Novak, Austin Hill, all ran faster than Squirick this morning. So Squirick was actually the 9th fastest driver this morning, and I think that's where he's going to end up this for the race. And then I believe we've got next, if we go in line, I believe we end up then with Michael Borden. Borden this morning was Borden actually was sitting 33rd, tail end of the field this morning, and in this session was 6th fastest. I think it'll put him 10th though for tomorrow's race. If we take a look over at our 3 touring classes, and we've got a little bit of time here, in Touring 3, Gamel Aguilar Gomez was your fastest driver in the session. And that's because Simon Foulweather, Scotty B. White, and David Horn all decided to keep the cars behind the wall. Aguilar Gomez ran a 1:37.205. Not quite fast enough to end up with T3 pole, as Simon Foulweather's time this morning, a 1:36.877. Richard Baldwin was second fastest this afternoon, third fastest this morning. Looks like he'll start on the inside of row number 2. And then we've got, and again, nobody take my word for it here, but I think Ryan Spray will start 4th in Touring 3. In Touring 4, Mark Cephalo was your fastest driver in both qualifying sessions. He was about 0.2 faster this morning, though, and he will start tomorrow's race as your Touring 4 pole sitter. Kevin Fryer starting 2nd. Angelica Spray will start 3rd in Touring 4, and Richard Mooney will start 4th in Touring 4. And then if we take a look at Touring 2, Michael Kamalian, your fastest driver, with Carl Funk, 2nd fastest in class. All right, let's take another quick break. Actually, before we do, I'm going to make a final call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock, final call to the grid for STL and STU, our final qualifying session of the day. STL and STU drivers, if you haven't made your way to the grid now, please do so. Your qualifying session is next. And we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few moments here from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta.
My customer experience with Mazda has been absolutely fantastic. I'm probably not the richest person out here, and they're extremely reasonably priced, and you can buy parts easily, and it's a class that fits both what I want from a racing standpoint and what I can afford.
We got into Mazdas largely just because it's a fantastic platform, and Mazda Motorsports has some of the best support for the grassroots racer in parts and technical advice and everything else, so they make it easy for us to run these cars.
And welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. I hope you didn't miss me. I am back. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Brendan Kazmarek, and we've got our final qualifying session of the day heading out on track. These are our Super Touring race cars, STL for machines that are under 2 liters and primarily naturally aspirated, and then STU for our forced induction and slightly larger displacement machines. Story here is these race cars, they can run different drivetrains than from which they came from the factory, but they must come from the same manufacturer. And so these drivers heading out on track have got some interesting info about some of our drivers now making their way out. If we take a look here, and we'll again break it down between the 2 classes in STL. Danny Stain was your fastest driver with a qualifying time of 1:37.304. He's a 2-time national champion in STL. David Paulfinier, second fastest. By the way, Stain as well as Paulfinier in Mazda Miatas, I believe. Let's see, I think Paulfinier now running in NC, one of the 3rd-gen Mazda MX-5s, as Danny Stain does. Mike Taylor in a brand new machine to him, brand new Acura Integra. Was your 3rd fastest car. You can see him now coming down the back straight in that white Integra with the Union Jack on the hood. Taylor had a huge incident at Sebring, and from mid-January until last weekend, he was building a completely new chassis, and looks to see that it was pretty darn fast right out of the gate. Here, as Taylor was just about 2 seconds off of Stain's times. Then we had John Sewell also in an Acura Integra. That's Mike Taylor's teammate. Austin Hill in his Mazda MX-5, the NC Miata. I think we just saw Austin out for the Spec MX-5 qualifying just a few moments ago, and then Chuck Hines, 6th fastest. If we take a look at STU, fastest driver, David Fiorelli, and David is driving the number 190 Ford Mustang. Qualifying time 1:37.793. Jorge Nazario in the number 165 Mazda MX-5. He's out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. And then John Weisberg, John driving the number 15 Mazda MX-5. He's out of Webster, New York in the Berg Racing machine. He turned in a 1:41.742, so about 4 seconds separating the top 3 drivers there. Jim Schlechter in what I think might be a new build for him as well. Jim has been racing Nissans for years. He's driving the number 75 Nissan 300ZX, one of the early 90s machines. He's racing for Alien Force Racing, and a real nice livery on that car harkens back to the 90s and 80s, 90s, early 2000s Nissans and the red, white, and blue.
Some would call the livery iconic.
Yes,
it's fair to say.
Well, we've seen that livery driven for many years by Paul Newman, a number of other racers in Nissans as well. You know it, and you know it when you see it. Let's put it that way. All right, as we've got the field now coming down out of turn number 12 now to complete their very first flying laps, and fastest time on the board right out of the gate, Danny Stain with a 1:37.958, and that is about 5/10 off of where he was this morning. Jorge Nazario, our fastest STU machine, second overall at a 1:39.709. and that is 2 seconds off of the provisional STU time that Fiorelli set this morning. David Paulfinier, third fastest overall in his STL.
Ooh,
Mazda
big
Miata.
accident. I think at the top of the hill there, Greg.
Yeah, indeed.
Car stuck center of track there, dead stick after catching the tire wall. The driver's right.
Yeah, just coming out of turn 5. And we're watching now as he's rolling that car backwards over towards the wall to try and clear, because there was about a 50% track blockage there for a moment. Good thing, Brendan, that we didn't have an 11-car train of cars drafting through there. And it looks like, although that car, yeah, might have had some minor damage, possibly, as we see it now come through turn 6, almost as if nothing ever happened. Oh, there you go. You can see the back, the bumper cover hanging loose there, but could have been a lot worse. We'll see that car, I'm sure, come down the pit lane. I'll bet you his crew probably rips the thing off and they'll send him right back out.
Yeah, Greg, I just took a look at the replay of the initial live catch with thanks to producer Ryan Bauer. Just the car wiggled mid-corner there, fully loaded up through turn 5, caught it, kind of, but it carried the car sideways through the gravel trap. It just caught that bumper cover, like you said, on the tire wall before it spun back to the center of the track. So it looked very dramatic because it was headed up over a blind crest, accelerating out of that corner in 3rd or 4th gear. But it's not very often you get away with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in this case, fortunately, it seems like car and driver there all largely okay, and obviously nobody collected him in the recovery.
Now, Ryan, if you can stay on this shot here for just one moment, and I think we're good as long as the timing tower, as long as the ticker stays and we can see all the gravel trap here. One of the there you go. Now it takes up the full screen. Thank you. One of the challenges that drivers have here, and we've mentioned how they've widened it out a little bit now, Brendan, and we can actually see this brand new little asphalt patch at the very end of the curbing. But one of the things that had always been difficult for racers, if they did turn in too early going into turn 5, was this little triangular portion of gravel trap to driver's right, because there was always a very big dip in it. And so what would happen is if you did run off the curbing a little bit, there was a pretty good chance, and it's right where the asphalt is now, there was a good chance that your car would get launched into the air like a foot or two, and if you didn't have the wheel straightened when you came down, you were likely going to hook off driver's left. And so this change here, I think, it's still an incredibly difficult corner, but we've got a car that that's gone off down through the S's there. One driver's left, one driver's right. We've got looks like some of the safety workers responding that there might have been some flame or something coming out there.
Greg, I worry that there's been fluid put down, and we do immediately now go to a red flag condition, which will have the driver stop on the side of the road and allow emergency vehicles to get down to the scene here. I worry that with the hood up on that car that maybe an engine's gone and dropped fluid. The highest commitment part of the track headed down through the S's. We see one car's been off at turn 4. That's a black, looks like maybe a Mazda that you see in the screen. I'm concerned there's another car there that has absolutely demolished the tire wall to driver's left exiting turn number 4.
Right.
And then impacted the secondary tire
wall. Yeah, a little bit further down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned it, that coming down through those S's, and you can you can certainly see the elevation change through here, but there is such commitment, and the cars get loaded up so much through that right-hander there, turn 4, and we can see how the tire wall there I think Ryan just put the big red circle around it that you could kind of see how those tires are now on their sides there. I'm still trying to figure out if there is another vehicle there besides that one Miata on that side of the track. But again, we are under red flag conditions. The clock does continue to run, but the drivers, if we can get a couple views of a couple other corners here, you'll see that there are a number of machines on the front straight that are parked on the side of the road there. And again, that is to allow emergency services vehicles as much space as possible so that they can return to incidents. We've got the one machine there off on driver's right as well, coming out of turn 7. And so, here are all these vehicles. What will follow this red flag is at some point the racers will be black flagged for them to return to the pits. You typically will not follow up a red flag with just sending them back out and letting them continue on.
This is going to be a tricky one, Greg, because in looking back at the footage, we were talking about the extra pavement, the new pavement on the backside of the curb at turn 5. If you go back and look, you can actually see this car's engine let go at the top of turn 4.
Okay.
So between 3 and 4, big plume of white smoke. Occasionally we'd call something like that a money shift.
Yes.
In colloquialisms, it's also possible it was just bad luck and bad timing.
Yeah.
But it would be accelerating out of 3. You see it in the background, big plume of white smoke, and I think that my concerns there are more or less confirmed. That in doing so, it put down fluid.
A lot of fluid at the top of the hill.
Created this
and it's
schmozzle at the bottom of 4.
And as we look at this view here, coming down the S's, it's a lot of times you can see if it's oil. You can see the streaks coming down the hill, but this is a section of track where over the years, so many cars have slid off for so many reasons. There are a lot of tire marks there. A lot of changes in coloration of the track surface as well that kind of make it difficult to see what the story is. Thankfully, the emergency services vehicles are able to come down that hill at a pretty good rate, and none of them had any issues.
And heads up work by the driver whose engine did let go
to get off the track as quickly as possible.
Right up at the flag station there at the bottom of the hill, and immediately they were there with a fire bottle to extinguish whatever the status of the front end of that car was. Now, if you look in the background, off to the right-hand side, there's a couple of workers that are there with that black, what appears to be a Mazda. We may actually only have that car involved.
I think that's the only one on that side of the
track.
track.
No other attention being paid to the now very turned over tire wall there to the far right-hand side.
Right.
Which is good news for us, I think, as the black flag has now replaced the red flag.
Yeah, so the drivers will be heading back to the pits. Now, here's the interesting thing, and we'll have to see. For example, we've got a number of drivers on the front side of the course. You can see Sewell's Blue Integra starting to move. The Subaru BRZ, which is now heading out, as well as the Nissan, and this means that most of these drivers are going to have to go up and around the course and down through the S's, and you'll see here, I think they're going to be awfully cautious as they come down through this section of the track.
Proceeding slowly and safely, as is the requirement under a black flag condition. This is really good work here, and you would hope that because we have some pictures for this session and we have an awareness of what's gone down there, that crew will be able to relay that to the drivers and say, hey, there's some fluids potentially down here at turn 4. There's EVs everywhere. Please take it easy.
Right.
Bring the car home and come back and see us in the turn.
Exactly. All right, so Brennan, let's do this. We're about halfway through the session. We have just gotten word from Race Control that this session will be extended. But let's take a quick break, and which will be one of our last breaks of the day. Thanks to our partners and sponsors. And when we come back, we'll hopefully have a little bit more information as to how we're going to proceed to finish up our final qualifying session of the day. You're watching the 2024 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back. Finish up our final qualifying session of the day. You're watching the 2024 Hoosier Racing.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. At Hoosier, we know that our success is dependent on how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Racing Tire dealer near you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly tires designed for champions.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for SCCA and provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. Hagerty also provides guaranteed value coverage and even has protection for your trailer. Did you know that SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty? Hagerty, let's drive together. Learn more at Hagerty.com.
Get more bang for your buck at summitracing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands. Parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more. Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
As the official fuel partner, Sunoco has been helping the SCCA and their drivers perform at their peak since 2001. Mile after mile, race after race, Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 racing bodies, including the SCCA, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. As the largest manufacturer of race fuels, they're passionate about helping drivers and teams take the lead. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRacefuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for the hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid. Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit HawkPerformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
If you like what you see today, become part of the action by joining the Sports Car Club of America. Whether you want to drive, flag, organize, officiate, have fun with cars, or meet 65,000 enthusiast friends, SCCA has plenty to feed your motorsport obsession. Ask someone trackside how to get involved or visit scca.com for more information.
And welcome back, everybody, to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, where we are in the finishing session. Actually, this is the last qualifying session of the day here. We're going to have a little bit more qualifying tomorrow morning, 3 qualifying sessions with cars on course to start the day at 8:05. I believe we are starting our broadcast tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, and 3 sessions, and then we go racing. 25-minute sprint races for our 8 race groups tomorrow. But currently, we are under black flag conditions. You can see they're still doing some cleanup down through the downhill S's. And I guess Brendan will know momentarily how much fluid was put down, or I think we can already see here that there was definitely fluid put down. We've got the one emergency services worker walking up the hill, I think, there to see where it stops.
Yeah, it's you could see that the driver knew it clearly, right?
Yeah.
But you're so committed from the time you come out of 3 to your entrance into 4. Right about the time where that motorcycle chicane rejoins, you are committed to your line through 4.
Yeah, and and we were talking earlier about how different these types of cars handle versus like a traditional GT car, and how these cars lean, how much they rely on their tires, and coming down through these S's is. I know it doesn't look like much. It looks like a lot of elevation change, but these cars are so loaded up. When you come across the top of the curbing at the apex of turn 3, you are trying to catch the car and keep it from going over the curbing driver's left. And in doing that, you've got that left-hand turn. It then immediately loads up the right-hand side of the car, and then you've got to immediately switch back, and it's a hard switch back to a right-hand turn.
It never ends.
It never ends. And the driver, yes, he pulled the car over down at the basically where the hill compresses and starts to rise back up. But that's actually the safest place for him to do it, because if he'd just gone to the grass almost anywhere else where he was, with the exception of the motorcycle chicane up there, he'd be going for a wild ride through the grass, and it's a lot less predictable for everybody behind him.
Yeah.
It was probably the easiest place for him to get that car off track.
Yeah, these cars in particular are at the limit headed into turn 4.
Yeah.
Right? You are breathing the throttle on your way in. The road is falling away from you as you go in there, and both the exit of 3 and the actual entry to 4, there's kind of an unnamed left-hander there, right? And that 4 is the subsequent right. Both of those corners, the road is falling away, and there's no camera. Right. So you are struggling for grip on the throttle with the car accelerating through most of that. And then your line, as we said, you are committed going into 4 with the trajectory down through the S's. So his next opportunity to get offline is, as you say, at the compression at the bottom of the hill, and you can see that from the trail of Speedy Dry. That's exactly what he did. Did everything right, pulled up to the flag station, got the fire bottle out. Everything was done right.
Yeah.
It's sometimes disheartening to see oil on the racing lane, but in this case, truly nothing the driver could have done to avoid it.
Right, and you can actually see here where the emergency services vehicles now are running up with that kitty litter with the oil dry. It seems to start right almost parallel with the flag station about midway up the hill. And so if that's where things went wrong, and a driver knows that they usually want to stop as close to a flag station as possible because that's where they're going to get assistance from.
Yep.
He was just past the point of no return there, and the next corner station was all the way down at the bottom of the hill.
Things obviously happen fast in racing cars there. In any racing car, you're doing close to 90 or 100 miles an hour.
In that section, yeah.
And, you know, we don't talk about the S's. Well, I'm going to say this as a sports car and endurance racing fan. The S's are the place you don't pass, right? It is single file through there. Prototypes do not pass GT cars. It is where you gain and lose most of your time relative to your competition because it's single file. GT cars are at the limit. Prototypes generally have to fall behind the limit, and that's where you give up your time. But it is not really talked about in terms of being a particularly difficult place to run alone on track, right?
Sure.
But it is still a highly committed part of the racetrack.
Yes.
You've got it, right? You are on the throttle fighting traction all the way through the left-hander after 3, and then into 4, you are, again, committed. Your trajectory, as soon as you turn into 4, doesn't come good until you get to the bottom of that compression, right? You have decided where that car is going to go, and you don't know exactly how it's going to pan out until you're basically 1 or 2 corners further down the track.
Yeah, and look, we've seen that now multiple times today where drivers get it wrong coming through turn 5, and if you are full committed all the way down through there and trying to carry as much speed as possible through that corner, because at least in race conditions, if you apex turn 5 2 miles an hour slower than the guy behind you, he's going to be 2 car lengths ahead of you going into turn 6, and and so it again, this is one of those tracks where it requires commitment in a place that in many corners that are just incredibly intimidating and not always the easiest thing to be committed here. So again, we haven't received word yet as far as how long this session will be extended, given the amount of oil dry down on the track right on the line. I think it could be a couple of laps before that gets ground in enough for drivers to feel comfortable about starting to push the cars through that section of the track.
And so this is where you kind of start to wonder about whether or not there's value in going back out on track, right? Brian Stasinski in the chat, and hello, Brian, makes the point that says it's going to be very slick tomorrow.
Yes.
It's very slick there now. You've got a ton of kitty litter, sand, Speedy Dry, whatever you want to call it, on the racing line at a high-speed part of the track. If it's going to take a few laps and we only have a few minutes that are going to get added to the session anyway, are you going to be able to run through their full chat to improve your lap time headed into the race tomorrow? We've already had one qualifying session, right? The race tomorrow is after lunch, so theoretically we should have had maybe 2 or 3 hours of track drying time, and certainly
although the track is going to be a lot more green by the time they go out there.
And that is very true. Yeah. And you're talking here specifically about the bottom of the S, so that's its own elevation, caused issue with water runoff. But for tomorrow, but I don't know if I'm sitting in one of those cars that's on pit lane now, if I'm seeing these pictures or being told about these pictures by my crew and thinking, yes, I want to go take my car through that now.
I'm looking over to see how many of them we've scared off, because I haven't seen any of them.
The answer so far is one. Well, one's been pulled out of line.
Right.
This is a green-tailed. Is that a GR86?
I think that no.
I think it's an NC. now that
NC
it gets
Miata.
closer.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, and that car would end up going to the back of the line regardless. Under black flag conditions, crews are not allowed to work on the cars.
He immediately makes a left-hander anyway.
Yeah, he's going to back. Yeah. Oh, that's Chuck Hines.
Okay.
In the STL Mazda MX-5, again an NC Miata. He's out of Cameron, North Carolina, 4th fastest in the session. And let's take a look and see where he was overall. Okay,
just
so
a
in
quick,
this,
a
yeah, go
quick
ahead.
word, Greg. I'm looking down here at the starter station. They're beginning to roll the flags up. The black flag is still in the air by the starter, but they're looks like maybe beginning to clean themselves up down here. Oh no, it's a backup checkered flag.
Yeah.
You can disregard everything I just said. Got a little ahead of myself there. We still haven't gotten word.
All right, so looking at this, Chuck Hines in particular, who decided he's going to head back. He was 8th fastest in qualifying this morning, turned in a 140.889. In this session, he was actually about 0.4 faster. He was 6th fastest overall. So, I mean, he's obviously going and playing with a 140.454. So he's looking here right now at starting. If things don't get any better, starting on the 3rd row.
Yes.
Essentially. So I mean, it's a good gamble for him, I think, at this point. Given that the drivers starting ahead of him, 2 of them are in STU. We've got Jorge Nazario and David Palfinier. That not running for class theoretically.
Yeah.
Nazario in his Mazda Miata, the 165 car, should have a little bit more legs than the STL cars around him. I think the outlier there is Danny Stain, who was the fastest driver on course in both sessions. But it's a good gamble for him. Now, interestingly enough, we were talking about Dave Palfinier, as long as we have a little time. By the way, also I wanted to say hi. A couple folks in the chat that I didn't mention. Nick Resputo, who I've done some iRacing with. Deacon Greenfield, fellow Honda CRX racer and an STL Honda CRX racer. I'm sure is very interested about this particular race. And actually another STL driver, Angry Sheep Motorsports, Chris Childs, I think just did some engine work on the Greenfield machine, so hopefully a much stronger chassis this year for him.
Come back to the CRX thing in just a second.
Yeah.
The word from upstairs in race control is 23 extra minutes to the session.
Okay.
It's a 48-minute session in total. Which I'm showing now 27 minutes gone over on Race Monitor, which is as close to a visual as I think we've got at the moment.
Which
time.
would give us about 20 plus minutes in the session.
Yes.
Right.
I haven't seen the EVs return to their home at pit out, so I assume we're still doing a little bit of work over at the turn 4-5 area, but this will probably result in something like 15 to 18 minutes of extra track time, which is about the time that we lost.
Right.
Or about the time we had remaining.
And
We've sent cars.
Yep.
Wow, very good.
We saw the front loader fix up the tire walls down at turn 5.
Excellent.
And cars are heading back out on course now. So let's quickly, as they're heading out, I'll just give you the top 5 in each one of our 2 classes. Stain, Taylor, 2nd fastest in STL, and then Dave Palfinier, Chuck Hines, and Austin Hill. That is your top 5 in STL. In STU, it's Jorge Nazario in his Mazda, Alfonso Diaz in his GR Cup car. That's number 25. Jim Schlechter in his Nissan 300ZX. I think I don't think this is the same Nissan that we saw in the touring group just a few moments ago from Jim Schlechter. John Weisberg in his Mazda MX-5, and David Fiorelli in his Ford Mustang. That's your top 5 in STU. I was going to mention Palfinier because this is a neat story, and I picked up on this at the runoffs this past year, Brendan. His home region, his region of record is the Chicago region, but he not only lists his hometown as Sao Paulo, Brazil, but that is still his hometown.
Oh, wow.
He comes up to the United States, I think, like 4 or 5 times a year for SCCA race weekends in particular, and comes up and races with us. Sponsored by Emergent Cold. And as a matter of fact, we see the big Emergent banners, or probably canopies across the way from us. But such a neat story. He said he got into racing. He used to sponsor many Brazilian Formula One drivers back in the 90s. Wonder who those could be. Yeah, exactly.
Pedro Diniz, probably.
Yeah, and Andre Ribeiro was who was also sponsored an IndyCar, I think, back in the day.
Sure.
And he says when Andre retired, he came by the house to say that he drives a Honda Accord. Okay, and he says it struck me as kind of weird because he could drive pretty much any car in the world, and essentially. Yeah, and he says he challenged Ribeiro on it, who said that pretty much it. Yeah, all cars are the same, and what he did is Ribeiro gifted him a Formula 3 a track day in a Formula 3 car, and that's where he kind of got the bug, and he's been doing road racing and go-karting ever since. But he comes up like 5 times a year, one of them being the runoffs, to race SCCA.
Have you ever taken time to watch motor racing from Brazil, Greg?
No.
National level racing from Brazil.
We're talking like the Brazilian stock cars that run,
and stuff below that.
Yeah.
The Imperio Endurance Challenge.
No.
Unbelievable, some of the stuff you see from down there. It is wild. The tracks are insane.
Yeah.
Right? They're something like what we would consider a club venue here, and then they throw these massive prototypes on. It is wild.
Well, that's
really.
It reminds me, and I know a lot of folks like Chip Herr. My gosh, who else? A number of folks that I remember from Early World Challenge from the late '90s, early 2000s. All started going down to the Dominican Republic and racing touring cars down there. Same deal, like these club, what would be like club tracks, like a Hallett or some Point type racetracks with these high-dollar touring cars. Many of them ex-World Challenge cars, but many of them built down there, and it just absolutely stunned me. And the level of competition being real high, and apparently the money was good too. That they were all, they were all going down every single year to race here. So let's take a look, and already we can see here, Brendan, going down through the S's. Drivers are starting to lean on that kitty litter. Of course, they have to, otherwise it's never going to go away. Here, as we see John Sewell in his blue Acura Integra coming up through there. Interesting that they were giving him the blue flag. He's currently your 8th fastest driver on track in a field of 22.
I wanted to just really quickly return to your point about the CRX.
Yeah.
You had listed off a couple of CRX drivers, obviously a fairly popular car.
Yeah.
Notable by his absence this weekend, Osiris Pena.
Yes.
Had been...
We saw him at Sebring. He was at NOLA a couple weeks ago.
We saw him at Homestead for the majors that we covered with DriversEye Live as well, which I think was the debut for that.
For that car, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But had been kind of the main contender against Danny Stain in STL, and you just kind of kept waiting for Stain to drop the hammer and say, "Okay, I'm out of here," and it just kept going.
Yeah.
A lap after lap for 50 minutes at Sebring, for 50 minutes at NOLA. And I thought we were going to see that car here and that driver here. And unfortunately, Osiris Pena not on the entry list. It is a bit of a shame. We think of the Super Tour as obviously a collection of the best of the majors, right? You want to promote them with all of the extra elements of the Hoosier Super Tour, with all of the extra backing from sponsors. And you start to think of it as a legitimate series.
Yeah.
As a legitimate touring series. That's not what we do here. But such has been the quality of racing that we've seen between Danny Stain and Osiris Pena in STL. You find yourself a little bit disappointed that it's not. I want more of that all the time.
Well, we also have to remember that our reigning national champion in STL, also a Honda CRX driver, Joe Moser.
Yes.
And my guess is we'll probably see that machine come out under the champions exemption for this next year's runoffs. I don't know how much we're going to see him, although we may see him bring the other CRX out and race an STU this year. But the challenge in some of the challenges that the CRX presents, for example, is I've raced an CRX in IT for years, where it was always challenged by the braking system and the amount of heat that builds up in the fenders, things that don't affect an STL or an STU car nearly as much. They can run something other than the stock brakes, which I always had to run, and they've got many more cooling options available to them. But a very light car, a very short chassis, not as well balanced as an MX-5 because of how short the chassis is. And regardless of how good the brakes are, you are putting so much pressure on those front tires to get you through a race. It is, and we've seen where Pena raced Danny Stain, and the car starts to let him down a little bit in the last laps of a race, as he's been pushing those front tires so hard for 30 minutes or what have you, that sometimes the last 5 are the biggest challenge.
Sebring with its bumps is kind of the place where you would expect the front-wheel drive to kind of hold its own against a rear-wheel drive car. Here, by comparison, you don't have really any surface challenges to speak of. You do have very quick changes of direction.
Yes.
10 and 10A, the S's. And while you can turn a car kind of on a dime, it's not very stable when you do it.
As I talked about this being one of the scariest courses for me, there are 2 corner complexes that were absolutely kryptonite to me and my CRX, no matter how I set it up. The downhill S is here, and the uphill S is at VIR. Because the car turn because the wheelbase is so short, and you're trying to set that car up to rotate as much as possible, to make it work like a rear-wheel drive car as much as you can, but it essentially turns into a pendulum. In corners where you have sweepers with very quick transitions between them, because the car wants to always, through those sweepers, walk around on you.
And what is the most, I wouldn't say difficult thing to adapt to in a front-wheel drive car, but the deadliest issue in driving a front-wheel drive car at speed is lift-off oversteer.
Sure.
Right? And what are you doing going into these S's and into the uphill S's at VIR?
Same thing.
You got to breathe the throttle and set the car up on as straight as possible a trajectory as you can.
Thankfully at VIR you're going up and not going down like here.
But it's that change of direction as you're breathing out of the throttle and trying to set the car up. It's just not going to. It's not going to be comfortable, really, ever. You've got to straighten it out as much as possible. And my guess is that even if we did have Osiris Pena here in that number 199 silver and yellow Civic, or I'm sorry, CRX, that it might not look as strong against the MX-5 of Danny Stain as it did last time.
We've got a car that's off pace. Yeah, it looks like coming through one of our MX-5s coming through turn 7.
Oh, very nice. Pulls right in the back door there at the corner
perfect.
station.
Yep. Got off course.
Very good.
They can go back to green flag there at local at turn 7, and people continue on. And, as I'm taking a look now, Brendan, we do have drivers that are starting to put in fast laps here. Many of them are running MX-5s, but we've got Adrian Comstock, who we talked earlier in the SMX qualifying session, and I think he's in the same car now, was kind of mired in the low 20s. He is currently your 9th fastest driver in the session. Austin Hilliard, who has just recently, he's out of Greenville, South Carolina, just got his Honda CRX, his Honda S2000 back together. He is currently your 10th fastest driver overall at a 142.16. Comstock right now 7th in STL, Hilliard 8th in STL.
Greg, going to interrupt you here. There's a little bit of smoke out of the back of the number 7 headed through turn 12 and down the front straightaway. Now the car heads off into turn number 1. Doesn't seem to be dropping fluid, and it is up to pace, but there you see it right at the apex of 1.
That's Chris Childs out of Purcellville, Virginia. We talked about the angry sheep. Apparently somebody's shearing off some of its coat there going through turn 1. Chris has had some engine issues with that car. I know it was down on power quite a bit last year. I think it's the same motor that he's done some rehab with it through this year. We'll see how that holds up, but he is currently running 10th in STL in this session. Fast time for him, a 1:43.524. And trying to look compared to what he ran this morning, a 1:45.880. So I mean, he's picked up a little bit of time, like 1.2 seconds there.
For those of you, because we don't have the timer on the top left corner of the screen at the moment, we are not finishing. The extra time added to this session, 48 minutes in total.
So about 8.5 minutes or so remaining in the session.
Correct, yes. Quick lap from Mike Taylor 2 laps ago, put in a 1:38.009. You could see out the window how quickly how hard he was pushing that Acura Integra.
And it looks like we just had a car with an issue coming through turn 5. Saw quite a bit of smoke, like tire smoke. And
I think that's the 7 again.
Well, we'll take a look. We'll see if. Yeah, and he's off the pace. Well, let's take a look as he shows the door to us. Oh, well, I guess we won't see. Let's see if we can get him.
Yeah, it's a 7.
Yeah, that's the 7.
Black MX-5.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like Childs is going down. And so, as you were talking about Mike Taylor turning fast lap in the Integra, and we were just watching him in. He's the 4th car in line now, coming through turn 7, the white Integra with the Union Jack on the hood. David Palfinier, who's the lead car in this group in the blue Mazda MX-5 with the red headlights. He also had just turned his fastest lap. He puts down a 1:37.838. That moves him up to 2nd fastest in the session in STL, leapfrogging Mike Taylor. But I should mention Danny Stain, who did take his car back to the paddock after the red flag. Brendan Stain is going to hold on his fast lap from this session, where he's reset provisional pole down to a 1:36.356. And I believe that is the fastest time of all.
Yeah, Palfinier and Taylor are basically together out on track here. Taylor's lifted off a little bit, maybe cooling those front tires down a touch, opening up some clear air to try and make another go of this. As the 7 now,
car comes down the pit lane.
Yeah, very good. Pulls off to driver's left into what is traditionally the support paddock, as opposed to the pro paddock on driver's right. We're using the one driver's left. In any case, you can forget what I said about maybe it not being worthwhile to go back out in qualifying with all that kitty litter down, headed through turns 4 and 5. They've scrubbed most of that away from the looks of things, and actually been able to find some pretty solid grip through there. Both Palfinier and Taylor having reset their fastest lap since we went back to green now about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, and you can see actually most of that oil dry has been ground down into the pavement, with one small little patch driver's right just before the drivers go to the curbing. Drivers left to set up for turn 5. You can see it right, the line is right there, and you can kind of see the path that the drivers take through that tiny little bend there between turns 4 and 5.
Really not on the racing line there.
Right.
You are, by that point, the car is fully committed through the left and the right. You're not breathing the throttle until you get to the actual braking point for turn number 5. And you wouldn't really have any business being out there in the first place. Now, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
All right.
We may see a few cars exactly where that is.
All right, so Mike Taylor just resets his personal best. It turns in a 1:37.919 as we watch him come through turn 1. I'm sure we'll probably see him let off the throttle, maybe cool down the tires a little bit. That is not enough to overtake David Palfinier.
Still needs 800ths, Greg.
Yeah, I was going to say he's pretty darn close, though. Yeah. But as it stands right now, Palfinier and Taylor would start on row number 2 for tomorrow's race, as the front row starting to look as though it's going to be our STL pole sitter and our STU pole sitter, Stain and Nazario, on the front row.
remember this group last year were kind of our trailblazers on Sunday morning, 10 minutes after sunrise, pouring rain, and poor old Danny Stain was first out at the head of the field.
Well, Stain at least made it past the start-finish line because we had the 2 STU Exiges that took the start of the race backwards.
Yep. You will have that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the I think the 2 Krug Speed Exiges both spun coming down out of turn 12. The green flag came out, and they started lap number 1 backwards.
Yeah, hopefully by the time these cars go racing tomorrow, just before lunch.
Yes.
11:50 is our projected start time for Group 4. Yes, 11:50.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully a little bit of drying takes place, and we'll be good to go. A quick PSA here. If you are down in the paddock, you're with us, staying here at the track, please make some efforts to make sure everything is secure down in the paddock before we head out from here tonight. It is supposed to rain quite heavily. There are some potential thunderstorms in there as well. The wind picks up here. You all know what the consequences of that are.
Yes.
But, protect your stuff, and come to see us tomorrow morning. And hopefully it's not too much of a washout by the time we put cars on track at 8 o'clock.
I'm looking at some of the chat. We've got Russ Lundberg, RGL Motorsports, who was our associate producer of the week a couple of weeks ago for Buttonwillow. Was it Buttonwillow or no? I can't remember. I'm sure he'll remind me. And Panama Floyd, who always I think of like Panama Jack for some reason. But talking about Mikey Taylor. Racing with, I think, Hong North in Lemons, and now, of course, he's been racing in SCCA for a number of years. I've known Mike, probably running on 15 years now. Actually crewed for him down at the Arc here a number of years ago. Interesting story. So this is, I think, is the second Integra chassis. He got into SCCA road racing, having purchased one of my great racing buddies' Honda Civic chassis that he had been building up for, I think, 4 years.
Yeah.
Realized it probably wasn't going to get done. As with anything in club racing,
an unfinished race car, you say?
Sold at a loss. Sold at a loss, surprisingly enough. Mikey got a pretty good deal, and unfortunately, that chassis is no longer with us. Nor is the chassis that he was running at Sebring. Just what, a month and a half ago. If you remember Sebring, he came out of the chicane, put the car into the wall coming onto the back straight.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like I said, Mike's been feeding me photos and everything about getting this new car, and Mike built this car. I mean, he didn't put the cage in it, but he built this car up from scratch all by himself.
Has it raced yet, or is this debut weekend?
It was put on track for the first time last weekend.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to immediately go third in class.
Yeah.
Obviously your target is Danny Stain in that number 9 Mazda MX-5, but let's see.
Wow, and he just put in a 37.4.
Wow.
Which is second fat. This would now put Mike on the front row with Danny, and I will say again, having known Mike for years, the bogey for Mike has always been Danny Stain.
Yeah.
And they've raced here at Road Atlanta time and time again in the spring, in the summer, in the fall. And it's always been the racer that he's aspired to beat.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is the benchmark in a number of classes. You always, you can count on it, right?
Right.
Death taxing Danny Stain in an MX-5. It really is remarkable, and he is due credit. But Mike Taylor here deserves a ton of credit. We said he needed 800ths to catch David Palfinier and put himself up onto second place in STL. He found half a second.
Half a second, exactly. And he leapfrogged not only Palfinier, but our STU pole sitter, Jorge Nazario as well.
So when we start tomorrow morning at 11:50, right around noontime, it'll be Danny Stain on driver's right. It'll be Mike Taylor on driver's left. He's going to have the opportunity to try and go around the outside into turn 1 and take the STL and overall race lead. It's a really, really good lap from Mike Taylor in a brand new car.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so checkered flag is now being displayed here, Brendan. So we're wrapping up our final qualifying session of the day. Again, we're going to have our three remaining qualifying sessions tomorrow morning when we start our broadcast at 8 a.m. Also want to remind everybody, and we'll probably be making many more reminders about this tomorrow, but this weekend is daylight savings time here in the States. Spring forward, fall back. So Saturday night, Sunday morning, we're going to lose an hour. We're going to be still starting at 8 a.m. on Sunday. It's going to feel like 7, and more importantly for Brian Bielanski, it's going to feel like 4 a.m. for him. I've already FedExed the coffee over to him. But yeah, a busy weekend of racing coming up. We've got a lot of racing tomorrow as Austin Hilliard takes the checkered flag here for the last time in this session, does not improve. He's going to finish the session 8th fastest. But again, 3 qualifying sessions starting off at about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And then our first race of the day, Spec Miata, scheduled to start at about 9:50 tomorrow. We're gonna be broadcasting starting at 8 a.m. So come join us early and stay with us late. Lots of races, 8 different races tomorrow. So let's quickly break down here. I'm gonna give you, and I'm just gonna actually go easier with just the 2 classes to just start at the top and kind of merge things together. Danny Stain, your pole sitter, as you mentioned. Mike Taylor with that 137.417. He will start on the outside of row number 2. Starting third with a 137.519. It'll be Jorge Nazario. He's on the inside of row number 2 with David Palfinier in his STL Miata. He's going to start on the outside of the front row. The question then becomes, did that guess by Chuck Hines to stay in the paddock pay off? John Sewell this morning ran a 139 and change. Alfonso Diaz was faster. Alfonso Diaz will start 5th with John Sewell starting 6th. That is going to be row number 3. And then it's going to be Austin Hill and then Chuck Hines. They're going to start 7th and 8th. Austin Hill in his Mazda MX-5, as in Hines, same thing in a Mazda MX-5. So Hines was 6th fastest coming into the session, as the track actually did get a little bit faster at the end. He ends up falling a little bit further back. And then we've got, I believe, Austin Hilliard. Don't quote me on this one here, but I think it's Austin Hilliard, and then Javier Sanchez will start 9th and 10th, both in SDL. Hilliard in an Honda S2000, Sanchez in a Toyota GR86.
Greg, I'm going to let you have the last word, but just a word of thanks from me, Brendan Kazmarek, on letting you, having you join me here for the first 5 qualifying sessions this afternoon. Love watching cars around Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. I love to see them at speed. It's been a tricky old day.
Yeah.
I don't know that we anticipated this, but you have cars at the limit around one of America's best racetracks. This can happen.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning it's going to look a little bit different, but we'll be here just the same with the cameras from DriversEye Live, and of course with the fantastic coverage that you and Mr. Bielanski will provide. Will be back with us tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Well, wanted to thank you for joining us after all the fun that you had with Brian at Buttonwillow. Couldn't let you just sit by for 8 hours. So glad to have you here. And like I said, everybody, make sure to join us tomorrow. Same bat channel, at least, maybe not same bat time. SCCA official YouTube channel. Also on Facebook Live on the SCCA's Facebook page. Here from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, we will be starting at 8:05 Eastern Time. That means, Russ Lundberg, you have to get up awfully early to join us out from Washington State, but I'm sure you will. So for Brendan Kazmarek, I'm Gregg Ginsberg. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for staying here with us from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta today, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.